In our world, some things are simply considered junk. For one young man, scrap becomes his entire reality when he is transported to another world and given a strange, seemingly useless power, the ability to collect it. And what this new world rejects is sometimes by no means unnecessary. Holding a dark torn sword in his hand, his heart pounds in his chest when he realizes this piece of trash is more powerful than he could have imagined. From the hilt, one eye looks at him motionless and indifferently unblinking, and he cannot help but wonder who could simply throw away something so clearly dangerous. Soon a new adventure will begin, an adventure made up of abandoned things that no one else wants. And very soon he will show everyone the power of this junk. But our story begins earlier in a noisy tavern, where the leader of his squad, a man named Kanishi, tells him that he is dismissed. The color disappears from his face, pure shock and disbelief, and his features twist like a string. Standing alone, he asks Kanishi what he means, but his former friends just continue the feast, not even turning towards him. For half a year, this group of 7 was welcomed. As heroes, they were summoned to this world to defeat a great evil and protect its people. And now the tavern visitors whisper and point at him, mocking and wondering how this joke could ever have been part of a hero's squad. Kanishi just laughs, mocking, as if sneering, saying he used his skill of collecting trash to his advantage. But Hirotaki's fists clench with anger and despair. Seriously looking, he decides to show them and stretches his hand forward. In his open palm, a bright, shining light begins to gather. It becomes increasingly brighter, twists, and gathers into a perfect glowing circle. With a quiet, soft flicker, a small glass bottle appears out of thin air. This is his skill, scrap gathering, the ability to randomly find and collect one abandoned item from anywhere in the world once every 12 hours. He and the woman next to him look back and are simply unbearably bored. Other people in the tavern watch indifferent, as if nothing happened. Bataka lifts the bottle and tries to squeeze a smile as he announces that this is a healing elixir, this time a successful find. But his words are met with a roar of laughter from the entire tavern. Kanishi grimaced and threw at him. The potion is useless, they already have a healer, so they will give almost nothing for it. He continues his insults, saying that it is shameful for a 32-year-old man to be cared for by people younger than him. Ritaka finally snaps and shouts back. In this world, his body and mind are now like those of a 17-year-old. No one listens. Insults pour down again and again. They call him useless, a disgrace, a burden, and plates and forks fly into his face. He freezes in place, and in his eyes a wound, pain, and shock. He looks back at the mocking faces and weakly objects that they should not be so cruel. But his sadness hardens into rage. He clenches his teeth and declares that he does not want to be in a place like this at all. When he is already turning to leave, Kanishi calls him one last time, demanding the return of the equipment the party gave him. Hirotaki freezes, his face sinks into shadow, and he becomes completely silent without a word. Kanishi looks deeply into him, his gaze cold and merciless. Clinging to the only thing that truly belongs to him, Hirotaka grabs his bags filled with collected junk and shouts that he will never give them back. He is thrown out of the tavern, he tumbles and rolls down the stairs, and his precious small change scatters around. From the ground, he points a finger at the closed door and shouts that they are not heroes, but just people who want to live in luxury. Silence inside, but the laughter still continues. His words completely vanish past their ears. Neglected on the street, he pulls at his hair in pure, painfully sharp, desperate rage. He sits on the cold stones, surrounded by his bags, and quietly admits to himself, maybe they were right, maybe he really is worthless. His consciousness sporadically snatches fragments of his past life, the work of a junk collector, where trash was part of the daily world. He remembers that one day when, after loading his truck, he thought the job was done. But then he notices a small, lonely teddy bear left on the very edge of the truck bed. He pulls the bear back to the front door and tells his mother that it probably accidentally got mixed with the junk. She barely looks at him, just says that it is no longer needed, and he should throw it away with the rest. Inside, her little girl is already tightly hugging a brand new toy. She has completely forgotten the old teddy bear. He stands still, clutching the unwanted soft toy. A deep sadness washes over him in a wave. He drives away, leaving the little bear sitting alone on the truck bed, truly abandoned. And now in the present, he remembers how lonely that bear must have felt and wonders if he is a weirdo for feeling the same. He sinks to the ground around his bags, completely lost and unsure what to do next. Night covers the unfamiliar city. He is all alone. Everyone he knew has left him in this strange new world. He has no money, no equipment, and all he has is this small bag of junk. For a moment, a bitter smile appears on his face. His situation is so hopeless that it is almost funny. But then something flips inside him. A quiet determination flashes in his gaze. Gazing at the stars, he decides, self-pity is useless. It's time to show this world the skills of a former junk collector. He unfastens one of his bags and pours its contents onto the cobblestones. He sits on the quiet street and begins carefully sorting through broken fragments and small pieces of metal. Old instincts take over. He picks up a worn metal glove and notices dense scratches covering its surface. He imagines the traveler who once wore this trophy and thinks about the incredible sights he must have seen and the battles he must have fought. But holding the gauntlet, he examines the barely visible ancient stains of old blood dirtying the metal. He knows even if the object is thrown away, even if it ages and loses its shape, the memories and history of the people who used it cannot be completely erased. That is why he loves junk. A genuine smile finally appears on his face. Despite the mockery of former friends, he is truly glad to have the skill of collecting junk. The sun rises, flooding the city with warm, reliable light. With a new sense of purpose, he heads to a small shop. Carrying bags with sorted materials in his hands, he enters inside and politely announces that he has a few things for sale. To the large, sturdy figure of the shopkeeper, he immediately throws a greeting. And in Ataka, a faint, nervous current trembles. He hopes the man will see at least some value in his goods. The shopkeeper takes one of the bags, and his face immediately becomes stern as he looks inside. Hirotaka's heart sinks as he prepares for refusal, imagining how the man will refuse to buy his junk. He begins to speak passionately, insisting, "If this is called trash, it does not mean it has no value." The seller does not listen, pulls out a piece of armor, and asks if Hirotaka disassembled it himself. Hirotaka quietly confirms that he did, explaining, "It seemed to him that it would be easier to reuse old materials that way." The shopkeeper looks genuinely impressed and notes that to disassemble armor so cleanly requires considerable skill and knowledge. He praises Hirotaka for the careful work, and Hirotaka awkwardly admits that in his thoughts, he is actually already 32 years old. Captivated by his skill, the shopkeeper offers him a generous price, 6 silver coins. Hirotaka's face is illuminated by pure, unrestrained joy. He sincerely thanks the man with all his heart. He leaves the shop and stands on the street upright, straightening his shoulders with new confidence. He watches as the townspeople go about their day, and a new, exciting idea is born in his mind. And he realizes, maybe, just maybe, he can be happy living as a scrap collector in this world. Life in luxury, no bosses, no quotas. Perhaps here he will even manage better than ever before. But his joy quickly fades as a harsh fact pierces reality. Later, sitting alone in the forest, he sighs deeply. He realizes he won't be able to earn if his skill works only once every 12 hours. His hope begins to waver again as he reflects on his skill, and with it on himself, and whether he is really as worthless as everyone says. Realizing he needs another source of income, he begins to rummage through medicinal herbs that can be sold in the town. As he gathers a few plants, a barely audible rustle comes from the bushes and it catches his attention. A small fluffy white creature resembling a mouse peeks out from the leaves. A happy smile spreads across his face. This little creature is so cute. The smile disappears instantly as soon as a mouse joins, and it is immediately chased by a huge pack of ugly rats with cutting teeth. He lets out a bloody scream and rushes away, saving his life. While fleeing, he remembers. He used to always shift the fight onto others in a heroic party and completely forgot how dangerous this world can be. Unarmed and overwhelmed by fear, he frantically tries to figure out what to do. As soon as the monster lunged forward, he suddenly gained understanding. He brakes sharply and turns around, throwing his hand forward, the perfect moment. His skill is ready to be used again. He tightly closes his eyes and begs with all his might for any weapon, even a rusty old sword. He calls upon his dexterity, a collection of junk, and pours all his desperation into a single, pleading demand for a weapon. Dark, shadowy energy suddenly bursts out and swirls around his outstretched hand. A dark force erupts from the ground before him in a huge, brutal flash. He freezes in shocked silence as the shadows twist and gather together. The tangled darkness begins to take the shape of a blade. It hardens in his palm, the hilt wraps around his hand like living tentacles. When the energy fades, he holds a sinister-looking dark dagger. He silently stares at the impossible weapon, while his thoughts race wildly trying to understand what it even is. There is no time to think. Monstrous rats close in around him, their sharp teeth and dull glowing eyes locked onto the prey. With a frightened scream, he closes his eyes and wildly swings the new dagger. The weapon launches with impossible speed. Dark energy, a continuous blurred slash that cuts through several monsters in one strike. The creature falls to the ground defeated. He stands in the clearing, breathing heavily but unharmed. The remaining rats, frightened by the power of the daggers, squeak and scurry away into the safe shadow of the forest. Hirotaka lets out a huge sigh of relief. His body trembles. He is safe. He lowers his gaze to the weapon in his hand and freezes it cut through the monster so easily, even though it was just a scrap of discarded junk. He is riveted by the strange, almost living pattern on the dagger. If this world considers it trash, it cannot help but wonder what other incredible things are waiting somewhere to be found. A grateful smile spreads across his face. He thanks the dagger for saving his life, even if it is just an object. He grips it tightly, admiring the strange and strikingly eerie appearance. Looking at the fallen monsters, he recalls, adventurers can sell materials from creatures they have defeated. His eyes flash with excitement at the thought that he will finally be able to earn real money. As if insanely lucky, he joyfully begins to collect his unexpected trophy. But a sudden piercing scream somewhere deeper in the forest jerks him and throws him off balance. He stands up, listens to the sound, and immediately understands. Someone is in extreme trouble. He panics. The first thought is to run away quickly and find an adult for help. And then he remembers with his 32-year-old mind that he himself is the adult here. He rushes to the screen and sees. A young girl stands before a giant, fiercely beastly bear, boldly ordering the monster to stay away. She trembles with fear but holds her ground, threatening to use magic if he takes another step. Her eyes are wide open with pure horror in the reflections. The monster in front of her is visible. The monster roars and rushes forward, completely ignoring her. She lets out a scream from her chest. But at the very last moment, Hirotaka tore between them, intercepting the bear's paws with his small dagger. The girl raises her gaze to him, shock and pure relief mix on her face. He gives her a quick, reassuring smile and exhales with relief. He made it. The consequences of the attack are colossal. The force of the blow pushes him into the air and he flies backward. He crashes onto the forest ground so hard that it shakes, groaning in pain. The terrible bear now fully focuses its attention on him, and he realizes, the bear in this world is dangerous on a completely different level. The girl watches in horror as the monster looms over her savior. The beast takes a heavy, menacing, rattling step directly toward him. Lying on his back and looking up, Pataka realizes he is in truly serious trouble. The girl knows she needs to do something. She must help him. She raises her wand, points it at the bear, and prepares to cast a spell. Her staff begins to glow, but as soon as she tries to pronounce the magical words, her voice trembles, falters, and breaks off. Panic overwhelms her, her breath catches in her throat, and her thoughts cannot come together. Despair covers her as soon as she remembers. This always happens. When someone needs her, she freezes. She recalls all the times she previously failed, unable to help her teacher or even support her sick grandfather. Convinced that she is completely useless, she thinks, both will die and it will be her fault. But from the land of Hirotake, he tells her not to worry, stands up, and declares that he will handle everything. The girl looks at him, completely stunned by his unbreakable determination. Instead of a dagger, he grabs a thick, sturdy tree root from the ground. He thinks to himself, this is much better than a small knife. With a commanding shout, he pulls the entire root from the ground, and holding it like a giant stick, swings it. He throws a heavy glance at the bear, warning it not to underestimate the strength he has built with his fist and years of hard work. He lunges forward and swings the heavy weapon, shouting that the bear will pay for knocking him down. The ship's root crashes against a bare wall with incredible force. The monster's eye twitches, but the attack barely gives it any recoil. A muffled growl, and the bear stands its ground, not retreating. Its thick fur absorbed the blow. Hirotaka grits his teeth. His plan didn't work. Now he needs a new one. He grabs the dagger again and rips close, searching for a vulnerable spot. He drives the dagger straight into the monster's shining eye. But the blade doesn't go in deep enough. He realizes the wound is too shallow. He already knows he has a colossal advantage over the opponent. Defeating such a huge creature with just a knife seems unreal. A wave of irritation flares up in him. Really wants a weapon for longer range. No sooner does this thought occur to him than the dagger in his hand begins to pulse with strange energy. He froze in shock when the weapon in his hand began to change shape. The dark organic material of the hilt stretches and grows, lengthening the blade. His eyes widen in disbelief. The knife transforms into a full-fledged sword. When the transformation is complete, the hilt is now covered with eerie, tireless eyes, and they all seem to be looking right at him. The enraged bear roars and lunges forward, not giving him a second to react. He instinctively raises the strange new sword to defend himself. He swings with all his might, and the sword's tip crashes down on the monster rushing forward. The sword cuts the massive bear as if it weighs nothing. The monster is sliced cleanly in half. Its halves fall to the ground on both sides of him. The girl freezes a few steps away from it, mouth open, complete, absolute astonishment. She can only whisper one word: impressive. Hirotaka looks at the transformed sword in his hand, just as stunned as she is. He does not believe it. He cut that monster with a single strike. He stared at the weapon and realized it can change shape, it is incredibly sharp, and it feels as if it is watching him. A shiver runs down his spine. What kind of incredibly powerful and dangerous sword is this? And his fear quickly disappears, replaced by pure childlike excitement. He spins in place, runs in circles, and shouts that his new sword is incredibly cool. He stops and carefully takes the sword in his hands, asking, "What for the love of everything in the world are you?" In response, a wisp of black smoke slowly rises from the blade. The smoke gathers in the air before him and does not dissipate. It raises a dark cloud filled with shining, mysterious symbols. He squints and tries to read the flowing text, but the language is not entirely clear to him. He manages to make out only two words, demon sword. At that moment, a girl approaches him and bows deeply, thanking him for saving her life. He quickly raises his hand, says it's all right, and apologizes that she got involved in this, by the way. He smiles, true kindness on his face, and saying this, he emphasizes, simply happy that he could help. The girl lifts her head. Her face is still full of anxiety and shame. She offers to heal his wounds, explaining that she is a cleric. She raises her staff and it begins to glow with a faint, gentle light. She starts whispering a prayer for her healing magic, but her voice breaks, and she stumbles over the words. She tries again, but the words just won't come out. Her nerves are winning, her body trembles. Her eyes roll from dizziness as she struggles to gather her thoughts. With one last desperate attempt, she tries to force the spell to be spoken. But in vain, she breaks down, starts crying and apologizing, while Hirotaka watches with concern. Through tears, she admits, she feels useless, a cleric who cannot use healing magic even when it is truly needed. She lowers her head, expecting him to agree, and Hirotaka listens silently. She stands still, trembling and feeling completely worthless, utterly insignificant. And Hirotaka suddenly is overwhelmed. He unexpectedly asks if she can try once more to cast a healing spell on him. The girl lifts her gaze. She cannot understand. He says he understands why she is so nervous and shifts the blame onto himself. He explains that it is because she has a strong desire to be useful to others and to meet their expectations. He smiles and tells her that her sincere wish to help him is already the best proof of healing he could have received. He encourages her and says that it is okay if she fails, but he only wants her to try again. A single tear traces a path down her cheek. His words, "It's okay, even if you fail," echo in her heart. Hirotaka looks at her with a gentle, patient smile and quietly admits, no one has ever said anything so kind to him before. Taking a deep breath, Lisa grips her staff tighter. His words have given her new determination. She stands straight and begins to whisper a prayer for healing. This time her voice is clear and steady. Hirotaka watches her, a gentle and supportive smile on his face. With eyes full of hope, she completes the spell and asks her god to ease his suffering. It works. Soft warm light envelops Hirotaka. The healing spell has been successfully cast. He looks at his hand. A warm, tingling wave spreads through his body, and his cuts and bruises disappear. He playfully raises his perfectly healed hand, exclaims how smooth his skin is, and Lisa shudders, whispering in disbelief, "I did it." Hidoki's eyes flash with pride for her, as if to say, if you really try, she is capable of anything. He gives her a broad, happy smile and congratulates her on her success. Lee turned pale and blushed, and her heart trembled with relief and happiness, something she hadn't felt in a long time. He raises his hand for a high five, and with a bright, confident smile, she covers his palm with hers. An almost fairy tale, huge, radiant smile lights up her entire face. She is truly happy. Looking at her, he can't help but smile too, thinking to himself that her joy is sweet. When the danger has passed, he realizes they still haven't been properly introduced. He turns to her and asks for her name. In the silence of the forest, she tells him her name is Lise. He replies, "I am Hirotaka, nice to meet you." He has recovered and for the first time feels more comfortable. He looks at the strange weapon in his hands and asks him about it. He says calmly that this is called Asaro Demon Sword, supposedly just some sturdy junk he found. Her voice trembles as she asks if he is really the owner of the demon sword. Her eyes widen as soon as she uncovers the shocking truth. In this world, possessing a demon sword is proof that you are a demon lord. Far away in a dark, twisted land stands a gigantic evil castle. Inside, a powerful figure demands, how could one of his subordinates lose his demon sword? Another demon laughs, mocking the demon king of weakness, while a frightened voice warns Sir Gisela, do not anger Lord Tristan. A small horned girl, Gisela, nervously insists that she did not lose the sword. It was stolen from her. Lord Tristan, a tall and muscular man with wild red hair, looms over the frightened Gisela. His presence is terrifying. It radiates colossal and suffocating power. He speaks of the pride of demon lords, who must be stronger and freer than anyone in the entire world. Then he grabs her by the head, his voice cold and sharp, and says that a weakling who allows their sword to be stolen is not a demon king at all. His eyes blaze with fury and he gives her one simple order: go and find it. With a powerful jerk, he tears her from the castle tower, and his voice thunders as he calls her the demon king from the trash. As Gisela flies through the dark sky, she mutters to herself how terribly troublesome it all is. Far from the castle, she screams into the wind, trying to understand who could have stolen her precious demon sword, Asaro. Her face twists with rage, and she swears to kill whoever took it. Returning to the quiet town, Lies calmly reflects on everything she has just learned. As they walk, she recounts the story. Hirotaka stumbled upon the legendary demonic sword quite by accident thanks to his ability to collect junk. She exhales with relief, deciding that someone as good as Hirotaka simply cannot be the true demon king. But Ritaka cannot get the words demon king out of his mind's echo in his head. He remembers the very reason he was summoned to this world: to stand alongside other heroes and defeat the 7 demon kings threatening the order of this world. He turns to Lei and asks a simple question: are the demon kings really that bad? Her face becomes stern as she tells him they are much worse than just bad. One of them once destroyed an entire nation. He looks at Asaro and finally understands. The demon kings gain their incredible power by making a contract with a magical swordon like this. A thin, mischievous smile appears on his face when he thinks, if the hero's job is to fight demon kings, then perhaps it's better that he was kicked out of their company. As they continue walking, Lissy throws him a look full of anxiety. She asks him what he plans to do with the demon sword now that he knows its terrible nature. She cannot help but imagine the dark power of the sword. They say it grants the most unkind and often malicious desires of its wielder. Hirotake lowers his gaze to the sword, his face showing focused thought, and tells her that he has already made a decision. He smiles warmly and declares, I will take good care of this guy. Lies looks at him, frozen, completely surprised. To take care of a demon sword. Bataka remembered how the sword appeared to save him not once but twice, when he was completely alone. He proudly raises the sword and announces that for him Asaro is not just a weapon, it is his partner. Lies looks at him, her heart filled with pure admiration. She thinks to herself, he is truly an amazing person, a weapon known only for evil. He treats it carefully and kindly. Realizing his unique outlook on the world, she reflects, maybe she too can manage to change for the better. She speaks confidently, offers everything she can, and says she knows healing magic, and also has boundless knowledge of herbs and spells. With deep blush on her cheeks and hands clenched in trembling nervous tension, she asks him if he would please allow her to become his companion. She gets a little excited and shouts that she will do anything for him if he agrees. Hit immediately responds sharply and without excuses. His reaction is so shocking that she cannot utter a word. He explains that her offer to do anything for you is wrong, because companions are equals who must help each other. He nods his thumb at his chest and tells her, for their tandem to work, she will have to rely on him just as he relies on her. Then he adds with a guilty smile that he is currently out of work, and his skills are not very impressive, so she might be disappointed. Lisa quickly reaches out and takes his hand. She looks him in the eyes and says that this is not true, not at all, because she believes his collector's talent is good and amazing. He finds and values things what others have thoughtlessly lost. Her smile is pure, sincere, heartfelt respect. He is completely confused by her sincere words, and a faint blush barely appears on his face. He quietly squeezes her hand and accepts her as his first true companion. Barely smiling, he thanks her, feeling a warmth that has nothing to do with magic. Suddenly, a new voice cuts in. As if out of thin air, a cheerful girl with cat ears and glasses appears, poking Hirotaka with her finger and shouting, "No job." Before he can recover, she grabs him by the shirt and pulls him away. Excited, happy to have found someone without a job. He shouts in confusion, asking who she is and where she is taking him, while Lee watches and freezes in shock. The cat girl turns out to be surprisingly strong, easily dragging him along the street, cheerfully urging, "Come here." She suddenly stops and announces that we have arrived, leaving Hirotaka face down on the ground. She spreads her arms wide and proudly invites them to her traveler's guild, the White Cat Mistletoe. She introduces herself as Rona, the guild leader, reception manager, and the official poster girl of the guild. With a pause gesture, she shows a membership registration form and offers Hirotaka a chance to become a traveler if he is looking for work. Rona poses happily. It is clear how proud she is of her small guild. In this world, a guild is an organization where adventurers can take quests from people to earn a living. Hirotaka and Lee look at the small, quiet building, both a little puzzled. They step over the threshold and an empty room greets them. No other adventurers are around, no noise, no activity at all. He notices how empty it is and asks if they even get quests at all. Rona confidently replies that they get them in whole packs. He presses her, demanding the exact number of Indrov's quests. An awkward silence fills the room, and Rona still can't come up with any answer. To change the subject, she quickly makes another offer. If they register right now to join her guild, she will house them for free in a room on the second floor. Rona proudly puffs out her chest and admits that they have plenty of free rooms because no one else goes there anymore. She presses again, asks Mr. Unemployed what he thinks about her offer, and he sighs and reminds her that his name is Hirotaka. He holds his gaze for a moment. He has a partner, powerful weapons, and now a place to live and work. He looks at Rona and says, "All right, I'll register." Rona suddenly bursts into fake tears and, dramatically accusing him of being a heartless wanderer, complains that he made her wait. Hirotaka just stuck in deadpans and started noticing how energetic she is. Lies turns to Hirotaka and asks if he is really sure he wants to join such a neglected guild. He looks around the simple but tidy room and tells her, although the guild is old, it is well maintained and having a place to live is a huge help. He smiles at Ronnie and says that he sees. The guild is important to her, which is why she tries so hard to recruit them. He says at the end that any place that is cared for and valued is a good place to be. Rona is so touched by his kind words that she remains completely silent. A broad, radiant smile spreads across her face, and she thanks him from the bottom of her heart. Her sweet grimace instantly becomes playful and she playfully warns, "You can't go back now, because if anything, she will draw such shameless pictures for him and hang them all over the city." In a few minutes, everything is formalized. Rona hands them their official membership cards. Hirota turns to Lee apologizing for making the decision for both of them, but she smiles and says that if that was what he decided, then she fully agrees. Rona hears the name Lisa and freezes, a curious look appearing on her face. She touches her chin, thoughtfully murmuring that the name Lee somehow sounds familiar. Hirotaka looks down at the new adventure card. It says, Hirotaka Hirota. A small, hopeful smile flashes on his lips, so he is, as expected, a traveler. He clenches his fists and feels a new wave of excitement. He knows he alone would not have managed this. But now, with Asaro and Lisa nearby, he is ready for whatever comes next. When Rona reviews Lisa's registration form, her eyes suddenly widen sharply in shock. She fixates her gaze on the paper, the name, skill, blessing of Shop Rona, and freezing, she gasps in amazement, exclaiming that she finally remembered where she had heard this name before. Lyra's frightened look, she clutches her staff convulsively, while Rona connects her incredible skill and her world-famous surname. Rona dramatically points at Lee and it becomes clear, she is the daughter of Lord Montaigne, the ruler of their city. Lee instantly lunges forward to shut Rona's mouth. Confused, Lisa tries to explain that she is just a trainee cleric on a simple training route, but Rona understands. She has stumbled upon a huge secret. Rona understands and promises to keep Lee's identity secret within the guild. Lee quietly apologizes for the trouble. Ronan's mind is already racing. He sees a golden opportunity to secure funding from the guild or even to get their taxes reduced. Pushing away her insidious thoughts, she smiles and asks her two new recruits what they will name their adventuring party. Hirotaka looks at her surprised, the party's name. Rona explains that most travelers choose names that show what they stand for and gives several examples. Hirotaka jokingly suggests a name that would give them the perfect work-life balance, 3 days off every week, while Rona imagines him working tirelessly for her guild. He doesn't stop, continues the joke, shouts slogans about workers' rights, and leaves Lee completely speechless. Then Lies shyly proposes an idea. The opportunists explain that thanks to Hirotaka's kindness, it seems to her that even a worthless person can pull themselves together and try. Hirotaka and Rona simultaneously turn back to look at her. Lies blushes deeply, feeling a little embarrassed for having spoken out. She gets confused, waves her hands, immediately apologizes, and asks them to forget that she said something like that. Hirotaka's face lights up with a big happy smile. He thinks the name is just right. He towers and makes a loud statement. The newest party of travelers of the White Cat Mistletoe Guild Junketeers has been officially formed. With a nod and a confident thumbs up, he declares that they will show the world their spirit of guts. Lisai looks at him with a warm, gentle smile, and his eyes shine with happiness. Rona flares up and confronts Hirotaka, declaring that the fate of her guild now depends on him and it rests on his shoulders. Hirotaka rolls up his sleeves, shining with impatience, and declares that they need to give their all on the tasks to cover living expenses starting tomorrow. Their first day as an official party is about to begin. The next morning, bright sun rises over the mountains, and it shines on the town. This is a wonderful day at the guild, the perfect time for a fresh start. Inside, Hirotaka gathers new partners and says, It's time to perform their daily ritual. He extends his hand and shouts, activating his junk-gathering skill. Rona watches carefully, honestly admitting she has never heard of such a skill before. Lisi excitedly tells Rona that this is an incredible skill that can summon rare and amazing items. Hirotake optimistically hopes to get some fantastic item again, just like his demon sword. The three of them huddle together, their faces full of eager anticipation, as his hand begins to glow. With a light pop, a new item appears from a puff of smoke. He remains standing, holding a small pair of lacy white panties in his hands. He stares fixedly at the unexpected find, and his face freezes in disappointment. Both Lies and Rona blush furiously, stunned into silence. He tries to quickly explain in broken words that he has no control over what the skill brings, waving his hands in panic. When he shakes the laundry, something small and folded slips out from inside. A dirty, worn piece of parchment trembles and crumbles onto the wooden floor. Lisa sees it fall and leans down to pick it up. She is curious about what it could be. Hit Atak and Ron's group crowd around her to get a better look. When Lissy unfolds it, they all gasp in amazement together. It looks like a treasure map. Lies recognizes the place and explains. The map marks the tomb of the legendary mage named Cain. She raises the map so they can see and points with her finger at a big X, the mark where the treasures are hidden. Bataka stares at the map, and the word treasure echoes faintly in his mind. He imagines a huge, shiny chest full of gold and jewels spilling over. His eyes light up with adventure, and he declares that they must set out to find the treasure immediately. Rona anxiously reminds him that they have to complete the guild quest. He cunningly reasons. If they find the treasure, they can use it to help boost the guild, and she can no longer argue with that. She reluctantly agrees, but orders him to put his life above treasures and at the same time makes it absolutely clear. He still has to find it. Lee raises a valid point. He warns that the tomb is probably guarded by monsters. Hirotaka notices dark spots on the map, dried blood, and realizes the previous owner ran into trouble. But he does not give up, confidently tells them that with Asoro's strength and Lisa's support, they will be fine. His decision is made, and his face is frozen in determination. With a confident thumbs-up gesture, he announces their first official mission, a journey to Eureka Valley to find the treasure. And so their adventure begins. They break out of the city and enter the wild, heading towards the legendary tomb. When they finally arrive, they freeze in place, completely stunned by the sight before them. The stone entrance carved into the face of a huge cliff is so large and majestic that it looks more like a gate to a lost city. When they step over the threshold, the scale of the place takes their breath away, and Hirotaka becomes even more confident. He feels the real treasures are already near. Lisa noticed new custom-made leather sheaths that Hirotaka made for Asoro, so the powerful sword reliably stays at his side. With a proud smile, he explains that they made it specially because it is important to take good care of your partner. He strokes the vaginas and jokingly asks Asoro if it is satisfied with its new home. His cheerful moment is abruptly cut off. From the shadows behind emerges a gigantic, terrifying monster made of bones. A giant skeleton warrior armed with a sword carved from bone looms over them. Lisa and Hirotaka both scream in horror upon seeing the monster. Hirotaka tries to remain calm, telling himself, it's just a monster, not a ghost. But Lisa insists now is not the time to joke. The skeleton raises its weapon, ready to knock them down with one blow. Without any pause, Hirotaka pulls Asoro and lunges forward sharply. In a flash of movement, he swings the sword and the skeletal monster shatters into hundreds of fragments. Lee watches in amazement as the bones clatter against the stone floor. Victory comes instantly, and it's all over. She praises him for his incredible skill, and he responds by throwing her a cool peace gesture with his hand. At that moment, strange dark energy begins to swirl around Asoro's blade. Dark smoke again forms into the glow of a letter. He reads the pop-up text and understands that his sword has learned a new skill, Undead Attribute. Bestowal. Lisa has never heard of such a skill. Judging by the name, it can turn its victim into undead. They both wondered why such a strange skill would be needed at all. Hirotaka shrugs, deciding that it is probably a useless skill that they will never need. But Asoro, however, shows that she has another new skill, Longsword, and she exclaims happily that Hirotaka is so insightful. With a loud metallic clink, the sword begins to transform, lengthening and thickening, becoming massive, jagged at the edges. Great sword. The spear's handle transforms into the shape of a terrifying dragon skull, and both Hirotaka and Lee's air freeze, impressed by its powerful new form. Hidataka struggles to lift the giant weapon, joking that his sword is growing. He thinks to himself, if Asoro keeps growing, he will have to start training not to fall behind. Suddenly, a calm female voice echoes from the darkness. It says that there is no need for that. Hirotaka and Lisa flinch, hearing the unexpected voice. The voice continues. A shadowy hand reaches out from the darkness and proclaims that their journey ends right here. Hirotaka senses a new enemy, while Lies shouts a warning, and at that moment a bright flash of magic cuts a dark corridor. The light blinds. A woman with long dark hair and pointed ears steps forward. She is wearing only tattered, leaf-adorned rags. She points at Hirotaka and demands that the demon lord of weakness surrender. Both Hirotake and Lies catch their breath not only from the sudden attack, but also from the strange appearance of the woman. The mysterious woman repeats her demand, and her eyes flash with power. The three stand against each other in an ancient tomb, and the air thickens with tension. Lies nervously whispers to Hirotaka, asking if this is another monster, but he does not quite know how to respond. The woman decides to introduce herself. She announces that her name is Rachel, and that she is an elf on a mission to defeat the Demon King. Her sharp gaze stops on the massive sword, and on Hirotaka's hands she recognizes it as a magical sword. She immediately draws a conclusion. Pointing at him, she shouts that having a magical sword means he is the Demon King. In panic, Hirotaka raises his adventurer's license and tries to prove that they are ordinary, harmless beginners, newly registered adventurers. Rachel does not listen. She begins to cast a high-level fire spell, summoning a giant fire spirit to lend her its power. Lisa's face pales with fear. She recognizes the advanced magical chant and understands. This elf is an incredibly powerful mage. When her spell reaches full power, Rachel's gaze narrows, and she commands the magic to destroy the fools standing before her. Hirotaka freezes, tensely preparing for the explosion of fire, exactly what is about to be unleashed. But just as she is about to complete her mighty spell, she suddenly trembles and the fireball disappears as if it never existed. To everyone's surprise, the mighty elf collapses, falling face forward onto the stone floor. She lies there completely motionless. With her cheek pressed to the ground, she quietly and weakly mumbles that she is so hungry she cannot move, leaving Hirotaka and Lies completely baffled. The great ancient tomb is filled with a moment of extremely awkward silence. A little later, the three of them sit on the floor. Rachel gratefully eats the food they shared with her and apologizes for attacking them. Hirotaka grumbles that he tried to tell her they are not demon kings. Swallowing bread, Rachel confesses. Although she did not find the Demon King, finding the magic sword is still a great discovery. Curiously, Hirotaka asks her about her quest. Her face hardens as she explains. Demon Kings cause endless destruction, and someone has to be the one to stop them. Hirotaka realizes this is already the second time today that he is drawn into a conflict with the Demon Kings again. Soon Rachel finds herself among all her supplies, biting through everything she sees and shouting aloud in disbelief. He lifts his now empty backpack and sobs, exclaiming that she even ate all the expensive snacks he bought for himself. Lisa explains, food is one of the key ways mages restore their mana, and Rachel's huge appetite means she must have an incredible amount of it. Lisa is impressed by her power, but Hirotaka still looks a bit uncertain. Rachel throws them a condescending look and says she knows they are impressed by her huge mana reserves. Lisa suddenly shuddered and sharply inhaled. She wondered if Rachel might be a blood relative of the legendary mage Coyote. Rachel proudly talks about her very distant connection, and Hirotaka sharply points out what that means. They are not relatives at all. To prove her skill once again, she adds that she was once an S-rank adventurer, and he regrets that she did not say it right away. Then he asks a logical question. If she is so powerful, where are her accomplices? Her mood instantly sours as soon as she explains that her party fell apart, and she coldly adds, she is a former adventurer, so weak people will die just by following her. She looks away and states that she does not need any companions for her dangerous journey. Hirotaka and Lies look at each other, feeling that she is hiding a painful memory. She warns them to turn back and surrender because their walk for treasures will lead nowhere. She explains that incredibly powerful monsters hide even deeper inside the tomb. She admits that one of these monsters stole all her equipment, which is why she is forced to wear tattered rags. He finally understands this, admitting that he thought of her as just some pervert. She suddenly jumps to her feet in rage, shouting that it was not her choice, that she was humiliated. Lies and Hirotaka are equally stunned by her strong reaction. She shudders, recalling how the monster grabbed her and how its dry, lifeless hands tore off her clothes. Before she can continue with graphic details, Hirotaka rushes forward and covers her mouth, shouting that her story is not suitable for children. She pulls back, pouts, and grumbles that he is too harsh for someone with such a cute face. Lee tries to speak optimistically, and notes how incredible it is that she managed to escape such a terrible situation. Hitoka gives her a confident smile and tells her not to worry. He lifts Asaro and boasts that his sword is much scarier than any monster. Rachel completely ignores him, asking what special abilities the magic sword has. She explains that she heard there are only 7 magical swords in the world, each with legendary power. He tells her everything he has already learned, and the sword, it seems, absorbs the abilities of enemies it defeats. Her eyes widen as soon as she realizes the sword becomes stronger after every battle it wins. She slowly reaches for the sword. She stands up and her face becomes stern. He immediately feels how her mood changes. A painful memory flashes in her mind. The village, destroyed people crying for help. She remembers how her younger self screamed in horror and could do nothing to save them. She was known as a brilliant magician and the fight should have been her duty. But she froze and stood alone in the ruins of her house. She blamed herself, thinking that everyone died because she was too scared to fight. Her goal became clear. She had to fight and defeat the Demon King. She believed if she could not fulfill this duty, her life had no meaning. With this burning certainty in her heart, she understands. She cannot simply ignore the mighty demon's sword. She reaches out to Asaro, eyes filled with terrible determination, and declares that she will destroy this evil, monstrous resurrection. The Taka stepped back, stunned by her sudden turn. She threatens him, ordering him to surrender the sword if he does not want this adventure to be his last. His eyes sharply widen with genuine fear. He instinctively pulls Asaro back with a jerk and presses her tightly to his chest. He looks her straight in the eyes and shouts no. Her face grows cold. She begins to recite the spell again, this time, calling for the help of the great spirit of water. Hidetaka panics, realizing that she is attacking again now. Finishing the spell, she grabs Lisa and he grabs her and shouts, "Run." She breaks her magic and a swirling stream of water, spinning in a vortex, flies straight at them. She names the spell Water Arrow. Hidetaka sharply dives aside, pulling Lisa with him just as the water blast hits the wall. They roll on the floor, barely managing to avoid the devastating attack. He looks back, his heart pounding wildly. The spell tore apart the ancient stone wall, ripping a huge hole in it and raising a thick cloud of dust and steam. He shouts to Lee, asks if she is okay to run. She quickly nods. Yes. The two of them quickly get to their feet and rush even deeper into the dark corridors of the tomb. Rachel silently stands in the dissipating pair and watches them go. Her face is cold and motionless, and her determination is unwavering. Further inside the tomb, they finally stop to catch their breath. They look around and realize they have gone too far into the ruins. He notes that the smoke screen from her attack gave them a chance to escape and decides they need to find a place to hide. But as soon as he turns back, his gaze falls upon something quite incredible. In the middle of a large empty hall sits a gigantic shiny piece of roasted meat. As soon as danger is mentioned, he starts to drool, and the sudden appearance of giant food somehow strangely seems romantic to him. Lies sharply snaps him out of this state, showing that fresh food in a tomb full of monsters must be a trap. He comes to his senses and confidently nods, saying that no one would be foolish enough to fall for such an obvious setup. Suddenly Rachel appears and without a second thought, jumps onto that huge chunk of meat. He is stunned. He cannot believe that she got ahead of them and is now happily devouring the suspicious food. Suddenly, a dazzling flash of lightning bursts from the meat. Her eyes sharply open in surprise as she is hit by a magical trap. She is thrown into the air while the entire portion of meat explodes, scattering sparks like rain. Hirotaki and Lizzie can only freeze in shock, both tremble with their gaze, and do not understand what is happening now. And when the smoke clears, the giant feast is already gone. Rachel lands like a cat and turns to face them. Her expression is deadly serious and she commands, "Prepare yourselves." With a sharp gleam in her eyes, she announces a temporary truce. Hirotaka is completely confused by her sudden change of mood. From the darkness crawls a massive, clumsy shadow, and she immediately recognizes in it the very monster that stole her clothes. Food? He widens his eyes in shock and a little fear. The monster steps into the light and is revealed. A white, undead horror in rotten rags. Liz explains that the White One is a powerful mage who was pulled from the dead by a forbidden necromancer. Rachel warns them to be extremely careful because the White can use powerful magic. Then she directs her anger at the White and wildly accuses it of escaping with cowardly illusion magic and deceiving her twice. With a determined cry, she declares that she is taking her equipment back. All three brace themselves as the White prepares to unleash a massive magical attack. A wave of mighty energy covers them, forcing them to shield themselves. Lies is troubled by the thought that even Rachel might not hold on, but Hirotaka notices a tiny gap. He realizes this could be their only chance. Another burst of energy erupts from the white staff. The magic strikes Rachel right in the chest, and she screams in pain as she is engulfed by a blinding flash of light. Hido Ataka cries out her name in despair, helplessly watching as the magic consumes her. When the light fades, she is kneeling on the ground seemingly unharmed but exhausted, and he cannot believe she survived. The white looks confused. It looks down at its hands and tries to understand why its magic did not work. She forcefully stays on her feet and mutters that everything is bad while he rushes up to her. Grumbling irritably to herself, she explains that the white shirt has a special power that dispels magic, and he yells at her for forgetting such an important detail. With useless magic in hand, the white one raises his staff and prepares to knock her off her feet. As soon as she swings, the white one's body begins to crackle with electric energy. The magical cloak, having absorbed her attack, now releases the accumulated energy back directly at its owner. Noticing the window, Hirotaka jumped over Rachel and swung his giant sword with all his might, engaging all his senses. She watches in shock as he steps forward to protect her. He forcefully brings down the sword, gasping heavily after that terrifyingly close miss. The white one is cut in half. Bones and torn gear fall to the ground, and he apologizes for accidentally cutting her equipment. She looks at him intently, completely stunned, and asks why he saved her. She reminds him that she just attacked him herself, and that it is only her duty to defeat this monster. She insists that he has nothing to do with her fun, but he simply turns to her and says that her duty has nothing to do with. He smiles gently and reminds her that since they agreed on a temporary truce, they have become brothers in arms, and he will always help a brother in arms. She is silent. His simple act of kindness overwhelmed her unexpectedly, completely confusing her. Their victory lasts briefly. The white pieces begin to move behind them. Rachel gasp is in the frame, them. Levy's scream breaks into panic. The severed halves of the white begin to crawl toward each other, and his bones magically stitch back into a single whole. Please, please, I can't believe it. With trembling words, there is no healing magic powerful enough to heal a body that was wounded and sliced. The white is fully resurrected, as if the attacks never happened. Akash utters in despair and says, "For a monster that cannot die, this is pure cheating." A new idea flashes in his head. He does not die, he thinks. Lies fearfully says there is no chance of victory and they must flee, but he only shakes his head. A fierce, stubborn light flashes in his gaze as he tells her, "We can win." He holds the sword at the ready. A plan is ripening in his mind. He remembers the strange new skill Asaro. It could both grant and remove a non-living attribute, and he understands that he can make the white one mortal. The white one begins to gather another giant ball of magical energy. Rachel warns him, rushing into battle now is madness. She is sure that an amateur like him will be destroyed before he even manages to dress. Hirotaka stands firm. His determination will not waver. He turns to Lei and Rachel and orders them to stay behind where it is safe. Rachel looks at him, distrust and confusion mixed on her face. She could not understand why he risks his life for her, a person who just tried to kill him. Lee explains that's just how he is. He cannot stand aside and watch someone get into trouble without helping. Asaro pulses with a quiet glow, ready for battle. Lysai quickly casts a spell on him, magical enhancement to increase protection, and he thanks her as the protective aura envelops him. When Rachel sees him rushing headfirst into danger, her painful past suddenly overwhelms her with a wave of memories. She remembers former companions who praised her for how she grew stronger. They relied on her to protect them, and then they abandoned her. They told her that her quest to fight the demonic king was too much for them, that they only wanted an easy life. She was left alone, being told that such a dangerous mission was a job for a genius like her. And so she agreed, considering it her duty to fight alone. She convinced herself, if everyone has different duties, they cannot be together. The white magic is now fully charged, ready to be unleashed. Hirotaki shudders, feeling the immense power gathering right before him. But just as the white is about to launch an attack, Rachel steps in the way. He yells at her, asks what she is doing, and warns, her mana will run out and she will fall again. She just smiles and by this reminds him of his own words, "Where is comrade?" "So if this is true," she says, "then it must help." A powerful flash of light bursts from the tomb. The voice echoes in her head, urging her to erase the past and experience traumas and finally let her true power bloom. She raises a giant wave of anti-magic energy. The power of her spell is so great that it tears apart the stone floor around her. The white strike is completely absorbed by her magic and disappears. Lee freezes in awe, stunned by her incredible power. But her eyes suddenly widen with anxiety as soon as she sees what will happen next. Rachel's magic is so powerful that it not only stops the white spell, but also shatters into dust the magic that negates the roll. Lizzie cannot believe that her power overcame Robai's special ability. Rachel's enchantment fades, and she, exhausted, falls to her feet. Steam rises from her body. She almost completely spent all her mana on that one incredible bird. Now the white one is completely defenseless, the strongest protections have disappeared. She looks at Hirotaka, her facial expression tired, but trusting, and says that now she counts on him. With a battle cry, he sharply jumps at the stunned monster, holding the sword high above his head. He channels the power of Asaro, shouting the name of her skill removal of the undead attribute. The world seems to slow down as he lowers the sword onto the wall. He swings with all his might, putting every drop of his determined intent into the attack. The white one begins to crumble, its skull creaks and turns to dust. Its entire body dissolves into a cloud of complete darkness. The three stand in the now silent room as the last traces of the white fade disappear. Confidently, he stares into empty space, breathes heavily, and cautiously asks if they really did it this time. Then the truth of their victory dawns on them, and they burst out in a cry of joy, relieved and infinitely happy, for the terrible battle has finally ended. Over, he remembers that Rachel was wounded and asks Lies if she can heal her. Hero Lies stands between them, and a gentle healing light envelops Ray. Rachel opens her eyes, her strength slowly returns. When the fight ends, she looks at him and says that before they finalize the truce, she has one question. She asks why he did not release the magic sword even after she attacked him. For him, he smiles and firmly grips the sword's hilt, simply answering, "Because it is my companion." A quiet, gentle smile appears on her face, her heart trembles in response to his hands. She makes a decision and tells him that she will allow him to keep the magic sword. She looks him straight in the eyes and asks for help to defeat the Demon King. King Hirotaka and Lies are completely stunned by her unexpected proposal. He begins to refuse, but she raises her hand to stop him. She laughs and says that she knows. He is one of those people who just want to live peacefully without any problems. She tells him that she will wait until he changes his mind. But her confident smile quickly faded. She lowers her gaze. Her voice becomes quiet, uncertain, and she shyly asks if she can still be his companion until he decides. He smiles warmly and extends his hand, saying of course, and she quietly thanks him. While he greets her, he jokingly pats her on the head and she warns, if he ever uses the sword for evil, she will destroy him. He bares his teeth and agrees to her move. Then she adds that she does not think a lazy person like him should have any evil intentions at all. However, he recalls how during their fight she called him and asks, why did she call him the King of Slides? She explains that it is not an insult but a real title. She tells them that each of the 7 demon kings has a title corresponding to one of their strongest traits like rage or greed. Then she points at him with her finger, mockingly smiles, and says that among all the titles, stinginess seems to suit him best. So the fight ended. Bataka joyfully suggests returning to their original mission to the treasure hunt. Rachel, who missed that part of the conversation, looks confused. The mention of trekkers throws her off. She shakes her head and tells them that she has already searched the entire tomb, and still there is no treasure there. He lifts the worn map, not believing his eyes, and realizes, this is definitely a failure. She sighed heavily, admitting that the map was a fraud she bought in a fit from a suspicious adventurer. Then she looks at him, a question is born in her gaze as she asks why he has it. Map, his thoughts race wildly as the terrible truth hits him. The fake map was made by Rachel, and it fell out of the underwear, the ones his skills had already gathered. The realization turns out to be too difficult for us. Him slowly pulls out lace white underwear from the bag. It belongs to Rachel. She looks at him completely confused and asks what happened. He quickly hides the evidence, his face burning with shame, and quietly mutters that it is not so. Nothing. When they return to the White Cat's mistletoe, Rona was devastated. She heard that there was no treasure. She cries that her plan to promote the guild has been ruined, and Hirotake just watches, ridiculously immoderate. He tries to cheer her up and announces, although they did not find treasures, they had something even better happened. Rachel enters through the door now in a luxurious new outfit, and he proudly introduces their new companion. She examines her new clothes and says she liked them very much. He apologizes that they could not pull stronger equipment, but she says it's all right. She explains that all this hassle taught her. She needs to become strong enough to win without relying on her gear. Treatment. He finishes the introduction and tells Ronan that Rachel is a former S-rank adventurer and John's trait is the jaw. Overwhelmed with excitement, Rona grabs Rachel by the hands, welcomes her to the guild, and calls her savior. Rachel smiles gracefully. She found a new home and is happy. Rona is completely stunned, enchanted by the beautiful and powerful element. Her thoughts fly again as she realizes an S-rank adventurer is a priceless treasure for advancing the gift. When their party has already ended, Hirotaka officially welcomes Rachel among the reception members. He returns to Lays and asks if she thinks it's a good name. She agrees, saying it's good and we do everything we can. Rachel gives a small approving smile. Lysai's gaze slid forward, and she felt a sense of belonging she had never felt before. Hidota exhales a huge sigh of relief, and suddenly feels incredible fatigue after all these adventures. Rona agrees and decides to stop there, congratulating everyone on their hard work. Just as Lise is about to enter the room, he calls out to. He extends a small, neatly folded eye. He explains, after he got everything for Rachel and Asaro, he suddenly realized he hadn't taken anything for her, so he gave her a pair of white gloves. Shyly explains, since she always holds her staff, he thought she might be anxious about how her hands sweat when she's nervous. He worries that it's a strange gift and offers to take it back. Her face flashes with pure joy when she shouts that she wants them and honestly admits, when she is nervous, her hands become incredibly sweaty. After he wished her good night, he goes up to his room. A few minutes later, Liz is standing outside his door, hand raised, ready to stop him. She clutches the new gloves to her chest, feeling that she has already received so much from him and given nothing in return. She recalls all the moments when during their recent clashes she froze in fear and could not help. No matter how many times she tried to use protective magic, she succeeded only on the last attempt. She remembers his kind words, saying that it is normal to want to be useful. And she knows that this is not true. The truth is that she is simply terrified of disappointing someone. When she was confused, the hand was already reaching out to her. It was him. He accepted her with all her weaknesses and said it was okay if she could fail. And it is because of him that she truly wants to become useful. With new determination, she rushes to Rachel's room, bursts through the door, and asks for help with her magic. She enters and finds Rachel just after the bath, completely naked. In his room, Hirotaka hears the commotion and jokingly asks if they came to give him a massage. He lets out a quiet sigh, hoping Rachel won't cause some strange running around for the leaves. Lying in bed, he looks up and doesn't take his eyes off the ceiling. He remembers how lonely he was in this new world, but now he has found reliable companions. He looks out the window at the starry night sky and smiles, thinking that maybe he really got lucky. And so the daily life of the Junketeers begins. They spend their days completing guild tasks, fighting giant rats, and found time to rest and relax back at the guild. Rona is busy at the table, happily managing the new workflow. After a few days, Hirotaka wakes up with a loud yawn and greets everyone with good morning. He freezes in place, his eyes widen sharply, and he is struck with shock. Once an empty guild hall is now packed to the brim with a huge crowd of adventurers. The wooden floor cracks and creaks under the weight of so many people. He looks around completely confused, while the girls have no idea what is happening. Rona panics, trying not to fall behind all the new registration paperwork, but declares that their plan was a huge success. She raises a flyer she made by hand in support of the party of handsome men and women, the one that defeated the tomb leader Cayenne. He groans when he realizes her flyer made them famous overnight. Rachel notices, when adventurers become famous, the reputation of their guild grows, and that brings more quests. But not everyone is happy. 2 recruits raise a loud scandal claiming they were deceived by the advertising. Hirotaka snorts, offended. They do not consider him handsome. Just then, a group of seriously dressed adventurers approaches him and asks if he is really one of those who cleared the tomb of Cain. He nervously confirms that he is. The adventurers suddenly burst into excitement, call him incredible, and crowd around him. He is bombarded with questions. They want to know every detail of the battle. She overwhelms him with attention so much that he barely manages to squeeze in a single word. He will cry out in surprise, not used to being the center of attention. He tries to explain that he is not as incredible as they imagine. Rachel quietly explains to him that exceptional travelers are often enthusiastically admired by others. A crowd of new adventurers looks at him, their eyes shine, and they are inspired by his great deed. She tells him that it was he who ignited this new hope and exciting emotions in their hearts. Liz quietly peeks from behind the corner, hiding from the crowd. She whispers to herself, impressed and a little scared that their adventure suddenly became such a big deal. One of the adventurers asks what his rank is, assuming, probably O or even S. He shyly admits that he is only A rank. The whole crowd freezes. People look at him, not believing their own eyes. The mood changes immediately as soon as they start whispering, and it becomes suspicious how such a low-ranking amateur could have pulled it off. As soon as the crowd is about to pounce on him, Rona rushes forward, insisting there is a very deep reason for his low rank. While the adventurers froze, their curiosity sharply soared. She begins to tell a heroic story, insisting that the true purpose of a traveler is not fame or money, but helping people. Then she declares that, to justify their expectations, he finally decided to take the promotion exam for travelers. The crowd erupts with a loud cheer. Her story completely captivated everyone. A quick summary: Hirotaka, persuaded by Rona, agrees with a groan to take the exam. Finally, the day of the exam for travelers has come. The test is held in a large official guild called One-Eyed Bear's Den. The examiner announces, those who pass the morning written test must come to the reception desk. Two overly confident adventurers boast that the trial was easy, confidently claiming as if they have already passed. In a moment, the same two are shown defeated. They lost. They did not endure. Hirotaka, Lisa, and Rachel pass by and decide it's better to just leave them alone. Hirotaka holds his breath, waiting for his results. The three of them rushed into the joyful celebration. They all took the written test. When Hirotaka and Lisa cheerfully shout and throw confetti, Rachel looks on with a smug expression and comments on how easy the test was. While they celebrate, an unpleasant memory flashes through Hirotaka's mind like a spark. He imagines a ridiculous show like a quiz where the evil cackling of his curse falls on Rachel as if she alone is to blame for their academic failures. He remembers struggling to teach her the simplest math with Lisa's help, while Rachel drifts into daydreams about completely different answers. He asks them to try to lift their spirits nervously, as if trying to convince that all those hours spent studying together were still fun, weren't they? But Rachel only smiles smugly, saying to Hirotaka with mocking calm that he should think about his own efforts. Returning to the present, he pushes the memory aside and sighs with immense relief. Somehow they all managed to pass the written exam. A warm smile appears on his face as he thinks about everyone in the guild, and he feels a deep responsibility not to let them down. With spirits high after the exam behind them, the team focuses on the next challenge waiting after lunch, the practical test. At that moment, Rona and other guild members laugh and celebrate, absolutely certain that Hirotaka's party is already winning the competition. The shot shifts to the quiet afternoon sky, and this means their journey to the test range has already begun. They reach the edge of Nomris Forest, a sprawling forest that now serves as the location for their practical exam. The instructor stands before the group of recruits and explains, their main task is to deliver vital supplies to the base hidden deep in the forest. But then he reveals the catch. To pass, they must not only win but also overcome 3 monsters along the way and collect 2 different types of medicinal herbs. Hirotaka and Lies exchange a look of sudden recognition. This forest is all too familiar to them. A wave of memories washes over both of them. For Lee, this is the place where Hirotaka saved her. For Hirotaka, the same place where Asaro first showed its power. He cannot help but smile at the thought and feels a strange nostalgia for the danger they experienced just recently. Rachel turns to Lei and confirms, this is indeed the same place where monsters once attacked her. Rachel, with unexpected sincerity, praises Hirotaka, commending him for saving a promising young mage that day, and because of this, embarrassed Lies waves it off, denying that she has anything special in her. Rachel continues to genuinely marvel. Despite all the quests and training, Lee has never neglected her own magical preparation. She gently strokes the leaves on her head and admits, as a mage comrade, she truly appreciates such dedication. His eyes fill with tears. She is completely overwhelmed, having received such sincere words of gratitude from a powerful elf whom she looks up to with admiration. But Rachel ruins the touching moment with a crude joke and receives a quick axe blow to the head from the enraged Hirotaka. Without warning, the other teams dashed away. They crashed into the forest, flying onto the Hirotaka stairs, stunned by their zeal. One of the travelers stops, looks around confusedly, and asks his friend why he is not joining the famous party from the White Cat's mistletoe. The scarred man, Edgar, only smiles crookedly and shows that he and his friends are also proud members of their guild. Their Ataka looks around and with a sharp prick of pride realizes, all the adventurers from their guild have come to take the trial together. It seems that recently monster activity has been increasing, so the kingdom has to hire more and more adventurers as a countermeasure. Rachel grimly notes that this wave of monster activity is most likely the very reason why Lee was attacked here for the first time. Hirohata falls silent, and his face becomes serious as he contemplates this troubling new information. He recalls the terrible creatures they had to face, from fierce wolves to the dreadful white guards who guarded the tomb. He catches himself thinking, why do monsters direct their aggression only at humans? But in this world, no one has an answer to one thing, such a simple, indisputable, and dangerous truth of life. Suddenly the ground begins to tremble. A strong jolt knocks them off their feet. Everyone tenses up. Is this an earthquake? From the depths of the forest, adventurers now rush back headlong and scream madly from pure horror. Absolute chaos ensues as soon as the whole group begins to panic, losing strength in attempts to understand what is happening. The desperate traveler breathes in short gasps. Pressure he has never felt before overwhelms him, and he is convinced A monster of incredible power has just appeared. Zai and Hirotaki feel it too. A crushing wave of magical energy compresses the air around them. Rachel's eyes widen sharply. She recognizes this power and is gripped by terror. Pataku instinctively reaches out for help, but Rachel shouts at him and orders him to stop exactly where he stands. A figure emerges from behind the trees. Only one curved black horn is visible. Then a small demonic wing and a tail with a heart-shaped tip appear in the field of view. She steps onto the clearing. Long hair hides her face and calmly utters a single word. No. As she walks, two huge beasts simply collapse nearby without a single fight felled. Hirotaka and Lies freeze in complete stupor before the little demonic child. She single-handedly destroyed every adventurer who crossed her path. Rachel shouts that they are mistaken. This is not a child. Her eyes flash with a sharp fire of recognition. She knows exactly who this is. Hidoka looks back at her confused and wary of her sudden, frantic reaction. Rachel's voice trembles with rage as she recognizes the creature standing before them, the impossible Demon King. She does not waste a second. She immediately launches an attack. The Demon King, Gisela, stands aside, grumbling that checking everything she needs on each person one by one is a complete burden. Her cold, slit eyes glided over the chaos with complete indifference. Rachel watches in absolute shock. Her attack was futile. The entire party froze in place, their minds unable to comprehend the impossible power before them. Gisela's gaze suddenly fixed on something and stopped, glued to Asoro. In a moment and she is already here, standing right in front of Hidoka. Her voice is like ice. She has only one demand: return it back. Cat eyes flash with threat as she repeats her command again. She lunges for the sword. Rachel moves to intercept. And Gisela doesn't even look at her. She just beckons with one finger in her direction. An invisible force bursts from the spot and throws Rachel away, while Gisela warns her not to interfere. The mighty elf is hurled across the clearing. He is helpless against this showy, indifferent power. Rachel falls to the ground and cannot believe what has happened. Her strongest anti-magic attack was deflected with one finger. She freezes, horrified, looking at the gap between their powers. The protective spell lace dissipates into nothing, never even forming. She trembles, realizing that fear had paralyzed her so much she couldn't even see how this exchange operation took place. Gisela grabs Hirotaka by the collar, throwing him off like a worthless man not even worth killing for. She lets him go, grabs the hilt of Asoro, and demands that he return it immediately. Hirotaka shouts at her to stop, and in despair grabs the sword scabbard with his hands. Gisela looks at him sincerely puzzled and calls him a thief. He has no right to make demands. She reveals her true self, cold-blooded and authoritative, proclaiming herself Gisela, queen of the demons of follow sense, and the only true contractor of the magical sword Asoro. The name echoes in Hirotaka's head, king of the demons of the line. Everything comes together into one picture. This is the original master Asoro. In a tense moment, they are locked in a struggle, both holding the sword. But her strength is absolute. She tosses him into the air with one hand. And his friends can only shout his name as he is helplessly pulled toward the sky. Hirotaka fights with impossible strength, shocked that such a small body can hold so much power. Gisela looks at him, in her eyes both anger and misunderstanding, and demands an answer. Was it really him who threw Asoro? He understands. She sensed his ability to collect a junk collection, which probably found this sword after she lost it. A painful thought pierces him. Maybe his partner's place really is with its owner. Gisela extends her hand, telling Asoro that it is finally time to return home. With a heavy heart, Ataka lets go, is drawn out of the sheath. But the sword does not move, it is stuck. Giselle is completely shocked. Hirotaka intently watches the Asoro hilt. It clings to the sheath and stubbornly refuses to be pulled out. The sword rejects its former master. It chooses him. He lowers his gaze to his partner, completely stunned by this undeniable act of loyalty. Kazala's expression darkens, and a feeling of sickness washes over her. Hidoka raises his gaze, confused by her sudden sharp change in mood. Humiliation turns into pure rage. She screams that she will kill every one of them to the last. An explosive wave of dark energy bursts from her body. Her eyes blaze with terrible fury, and she looks down on him reproachfully. In response to her murderous intent, Asoro begins to writhe in Hirotaka's hands. Dark, living tentacles wrap around the hilt as it begins to transform. A threatening energy thickens in the air until the sword takes on a new form. Giselle's eyes open wide as she watches the impossible transformation. New eyes grow from the hilt. There are many of them, and all of them gaze intently at Hirotaka, full of devotion. The sword tears apart the sheath and releases its true monstrous form, ready to protect its new master. Bella can only freeze and watch, her face a mask of pure shock and rage. Hirotaka is stunned by what an incredible weapon Asaro has become for him. Kaislia's face twists with fury. She screams and lashes out at him with insults. A terrifying shadow grows behind her, promising that the man will not have an easy death. Holding this living weapon, Hirotaka asks his partner if this choice is really okay. Fire flares in his eyes, he makes a decision, and declares that he will never give up Asaro. The battle line is drawn. A mad demon king stands against the boy who now holds her former sword. Hirotaka crouches, points the demonic blade forward, and boldly repeats his previous threat. Gazella looks back, her eyes cold, full of anger, and she promises him a painful end. Despite the sweat on his forehead, his determination is absolute. He will never abandon his partner. She moves faster than lightning, an indistinct swift shadow, and claws cut through the air. Hirotaka grits his teeth and freezes before the strike. Her attack is about to land incredibly fast. He barely manages to lift Asaro, he intercepts her hand with the blade. A strange wave of energy spreads in circles, as if her power simply vanishes into emptiness, into nowhere. He holds his position, the sword steady, firm, and completely neutralizes her attack. They both stare at each other and both are completely stunned. He holds his position. The sword presses evenly and completely neutralizes her attack. Her colossal strength cracks and fades at the very moment it touches the blade. Hirotaka braces himself against the colossal physical force of the strike, yet still holds firm. Kaisela lowers her gaze, and her face changes from anger to complete confusion. She is struck by a sharp suspicion. The power that could destroy the entire forest completely dissipates as soon as it touches the sword. She growls and demands, "Tell me, what trick are you showing?" He reveals the hidden power of the sword, a technique called mana break, which completely destroys the magic of anyone it touches. With new confidence, Hirotaka boldly tells the Demon King that her attacks against him are futile. He finally remembers. It was the same skill that Asaro absorbed from the White One, a power he had forgotten, until his partner activated it to save his life. But he realizes this advantage will not last forever. Gisela's physical attacks are still incredibly strong and her mana seems limitless. She falls silent, her brow furrowing as she tries to comprehend this unexpected event. She snorts defiantly in irritation, not believing that some simple thief boasts of a skill she doesn't even recognize. The tense battle suddenly turns into a childish quarrel. She accuses him of theft, and he insists that his skill simply gathered an abandoned item. The prophecy struck him like lightning, and pointing at her, he shouted that it means she discarded Asaro. Her harsh manner breaks instantly as soon as she panics and desperately refuses. She would never throw away her precious saber. She struggles for excuses and admits that maybe she simply forgot where exactly she put it already for several decades. She continues babbling incessantly, trying to save face, saying that she remembered it not only because other demon kings were angry at her. Ritika bursts into a scream and, completely exhausted, declares, "Forgetting something for such a long time is the same as throwing it away." Embarrassed and humiliated, Gisela switches to shouting. Her threats sound not threatening, but like a child's tantrum. Now they stand in the clearing and shout at each other, fools, utterly foolish, like quarrelsome children. Rachel and Liz can only watch from afar, completely stunned by the amazing scene unfolding right before their eyes. While Lysai doubts whether this is really a demon king, Rachel is deeply impressed. She believes that only Hirotaka can stand on equal terms with such a creature. Gitsela tries to defend herself, admits that she might have neglected Asaro, but they still had so many good moments together. A ridiculous memory flashes through her mind. How she used Asaro as a lid for noodles and as an extremely convenient back scratcher. An awkward silence covers the clearing as the argument quiets down. Her patience finally snapped. She clenches her fist and her face darkens as she says that it's enough. Hirotaka immediately raises his sword, preparing for her next move. Then he hears screams from the forest and turns around to see reinforcements arriving. A squad of city soldiers led by Edgar bursts into the clearing, engaging in battle, swords already in hand. Rachel and Lysai freeze in fear, realizing that these soldiers are rushing straight towards death. Edgar rallies his men, tearing them into formation, warning, "Do not be deceived by Gisela's appearance, for she is the monster who dealt with the other adventurers." The warriors bravely surround the Demon King, ready to fight together to protect their city. Rachel shouts to them, "Run back," frantically trying to warn that the Demon King is an opponent they cannot defeat at all. Terrible words ripple through the military ranks, and the audible whispers of fear begin to spread. Trying to ignore the interruptions, Gisela bites her thumb so hard that blood appears. She begins a dark spell, giving her own life force to awaken her demonic servants. Whirlwinds of pure darkness forming around her burst into the space, curling into giant shadow monsters with glowing teeth. Hirotaka could only freeze and watch the sheer horror. From the darkness, a flock of winged vampiric creatures bursts out. They wail plaintively, spilling out right outside. Kaisela smiles with pure malice as she gives her new army one single cruel command: to cut down, to destroy all people to the last one. The demonic horde crashes down on the soldiers, stunned with fear. They scream in terror, completely unprepared for such a nightmarish enemy. Kirotaki helplessly watches as his face pales with despair. He shouts at the top of his lungs for it to finally stop. But it is already too late. The vampires crash into the soldiers, and the forest explodes with the sounds of a one-sided slaughter. While he is distracted, Gisela snorts angrily and asks if he really has time to look away. She reminds him that he stands against the Demon King, and throws at him a spear of dark energy flying headlong. He looks back, but too slowly he fails to react in time. Her attack overwhelms him as she warns he will regret not returning her sword. But just as the strike is about to land, her eye catches a strange movement on the ground. A small, fluffy black creature with bright eyes jumps out of a hole right into her path. Kaisela freezes. Her mighty strike is cut off in midair as she, with a gaze full of complete confusion, stares straight ahead. At that very moment, Rachel begins to utter a powerful spell calling the spirits of the dead. When she casts necromancy, a flash of magical energy shoots out, and from beneath the ground like claws, 3 huge undead warriors burst forth. She glances at Gisela and shouts that she will not allow the Demon King to do as he pleases. The undead soldiers rush forward, and the living warriors panic until Rachel shouts that they are on their side. Meanwhile, Lisa finds the courage within herself and begins her own prayer to the Holy Mother Chakra. With a mighty cry, she unleashes a powerful protective spell, enveloping the soldiers in a dome of sacred light that shields them from the vampire. She clenches her small fists, and a new sense of purpose fills her heart. Rachel looks on with fierce pride and swears, this time, unlike before, she will not stand helplessly aside. Lee finds his own resolve. His eyes shine, and his only thought is to protect Hirotaka and everyone else. The two girls stand back to back and hold off the onslaught while telling Hirotaka to focus on the main thing: the enemies. He looks back at them and his heart fills with pride, how much his comrades have grown. One of the undead warriors, Rachel, suddenly lunges at Giselle. She grabs her with her arms and holds her tightly. Giselle looks truly shocked. She says that necromancy is a forbidden art that an ordinary mage cannot master. Rachel simply smiles indulgently, proudly declaring that after all she is a genius. And she knows, even with her power alone, she cannot compare to the true Demon King. She shifts her gaze to Hirotaka, and on her face is an expression of trust that has just emerged. She calls him by name and says that together they can win this fight. Stunned by her unconditional faith in him, he realizes the time has come to fight for real like a true team. His face hardens. Only a pure, unwavering decision remains. He recalls his simple dreamy wish, a carefree life, a dream that now seems so distant. His path is clear. If anyone dares to harm his companions, he will show no mercy. With a powerful shout, he points Asaro at the captured Demon King and declares that he will overthrow her now. Gisela looks up at him, and on her face is genuine surprise. This unexpected moment quickly melts away. She begins to laugh at his foolish desperation. A predatory, confident smile spreads across her face. Interesting, she says, her voice dangerously calm. She releases a shockwave of pure power, completely destroying the undead that held. Rachel immediately orders her remaining warriors to press the attack and support Hirotaka. The army of the dead surges forward again. Gisela snorts disdainfully. No amount of undead will overcome her. She fiercely lashes her tail, and a whip of dark energy cuts through her undead attacker. The rest of the warriors do not stop and continue the ruthless advance, not frightened a step. She clicks her tongue, irritated by their stubbornness, and compares them to a swarm of insects. She narrows her eyes and focuses her power for another devastating strike. But her undead opponent suddenly breaks free, raises his gaze, and freezes in shock and confusion. Gisela looks around and suddenly realizes Hirotaka is no longer in front of her. He disappeared, she says, eyes wide open in surprise. He appears in a moment next to her. He used the chaos as the perfect cover. The Demon King's cat eye widens in shock when she finally understands his cunning plan. She realizes he merged with the charged undead warriors and is sneaking through the crowd to stealthily get into her blind spot while she was focused on the horse. With a fierce and determined smile, Hirotaka shouts that now he has her. He strikes Asori, putting everything into it to the last drop. The attack stops half a step short. It is stopped by Gisela's long blonde hair, which wraps around the blade like a living wing. Blood flows where the blade, despite the impossibility, still managed to cut a few of those non-existent strands. Hirotaka's confident face completely crumbles. Instead, a face full of distrust appears. Gisela looks at him with a self-satisfied, indulgent smile and calls him naive. Catching his hair, she throws both him and the sword back across the clearing. She watches him fly through the air, and on her face is an amused expression as if he is just a toy to her. He falls to the ground with a thud. A hard blow tears the air from his lungs. He grits his teeth through the burning pain. His face contorts in agony. But he does not give up. He presses his boot into the mud and, pushing himself, rises to his feet. With a defiant roar, he lunges forward once more, pressing Asaro into her side with all his strength. Gisela looks completely stunned. She cannot believe she can still move, let alone attack. Hirotaka growls in pain, pouring all his remaining energy into this one last desperate burst. In a stunning clash, the tip of Asaro's blade pierces Gisela's side, just as her bladed tail strikes Hirotaka's shoulder. This is the decisive blow. The sword bursts into her chest and gets stuck. Gisela looked down at the blade, eyes wide open. Genuine shock first cuts across her face. Akastranes pushes the sword deeper, his face a mask of incredible pain and effort. She grabs the blade and her face changes to a strange, amazing fascination as she admits, "It does mean something, since he managed to hit her with a strike." Reality hits him like a shock. He really hurt her. Her face softens a little as she looks at the boy who did the impossible. A small, gentle smile appears on her face as the body begins to break down into particles of light. She quietly laughs and calls him an interesting boy. Her body disappears in a whirlwind of energy, and her voice echoes, promising that she will remember his name. Soldiers and adventurers freeze in stunned silence as the Demon King crumbles to dust. Relief and joy wash over them in a wave, and mighty shouts break out as they celebrate their victory. But the hero of the battle stumbles and, clutching the bloody wound on his side, gasps for air. He lowers his gaze to his hand. Now it is all covered in his own blood. Blood trickles from his mouth. The wound is much more serious than it seemed at first glance. Liz and Rachel rush to him, their faces distorted by panic and anxiety. Despite the unbearable pain, he manages to force a weak, calming smile and tells them that he is just glad. His strength finally runs out. He convulsively tries to ask if Asaro is okay before his head falls forward lifelessly. The world dims as he loses consciousness. His friends can only shout his name as he sinks to the ground. The battle is over, but their leader now lies motionless on the forest floor. Rumors about the appearance of the Demon King and the subsequent defeat spread through the city. But the most incredible of all rumors is that a small group of travelers was the cause. After 3 days, Lee is overwhelmed with joy, her face shining with tears of happiness, and she shouts for everyone to look. Hirotaka stands still again, irritated by all the noise, and wonders if she thinks he is a baby taking his first steps. He gently asks Lai to stop crying, but she is overwhelmed by a wave of emotions. She is completely in despair. Sobbing, she explains how fear tore her apart. She tells him that he is bleeding so badly that even her most powerful healing spells could not wake him. She admits how scared she was at the thought of losing him and makes him realize how much his friends truly care about him. He awkwardly waves his hands, not knowing how to comfort her. Rona appears and, teasing jokingly, tells him to say something smarter than baby babble. Rachel just watches the scene with a thoughtful expression, wondering if this is some strange roleplay. Other guild members greet him warmly. With relief, he finally came to his senses after 3 long days. Attack apologizes to Rona for scaring her, but Rona quickly objects. She says she was just thinking about the guild's reputation. Rachel steps forward, and her face becomes stern and sincere as she expresses her own gratitude. She tells him that it is a true miracle they managed to repel the Demon King without losing a single person. She looks him straight in the eyes and says, openly admiring, that he is truly something special. And he looks down, crushed by guilt, and insists that it is his fault he refused to renounce Asura. Edgar immediately interrupts him, taking the blame for calling the soldiers, who did not hold against such an enemy. While others begin to apologize, Rachel steps forward and reminds, no one knew what they were up against and they all fought bravely. Lisa still looks worried, starts an argument but suddenly falls silent. The fear from that day is still stuck in her eyes. She clenches her fist and tells Hirotaki that she is glad he did not give up the magic sword. He is completely shocked by her statement. She explains that once she was afraid of Asaro, and she saw in her the symbol of the Demon Kings. Now she sincerely believes that the sword is his true partner. With a radiant, happy smile, she says she is glad he did not give up what was so important to him. Rachel nods, wholeheartedly agreeing with Les's mood. She gives Hirotaka a warm, understanding smile and says that if he were one of those who abandoned comrades, she would never have followed him. He looks at his 2 friends, completely stunned by their unwavering loyalty. He cannot express himself. He only dared a simple, sincere, thank you. Other guild members just watch a little confused, because the moment exploded with emotions. One of them speaks up and asks about the magical sword, and Hirotaka realizes they do not know Asoro's true identity. After a brief and subdued explanation, the entire guild hall erupts with a collective shout of disbelief. The secret was revealed. The guild members, full of admiration, begged him to keep the world-class weapon a secret. And Rona clears her throat and announces that she has extremely important news for Hirotaka. She shines with pride and reveals, because of his incredible achievements in the recent battle. She pulls out a party popper, unfolding a banner that says the Junketeers are promoted straight to C rank. She can hardly believe it until Rona explains that skipping such ranks is completely unprecedented. She happily hums, overflowing with joy. Rumors of their victory have caused a real influx of new adventurers eager to join their guild. While Hirotaka is still digesting the fact that he was promoted even before finishing the exam, Edgar chuckles and says they should have skipped even more ranks. A flashback shows one of the travelers giving a wildly exaggerated eyewitness account of the battle. He claims that Hirotaka elegantly toyed with the Demon King, causing Hirotaka to sigh sadly over the fabricated tale. Suddenly, a hooded figure leans in and whispers, "He actually lost because of her hair." Hit or talk, a jump back in fear as the figure pulls the hood over themselves. It's Gisela. She is alive and winks at him. A small bat familiar lands on his shoulder and whispers a threat, ordering him to be silent. Gisela smiles menacingly and warns, if he causes a commotion, she might relax and kill everyone for real. He is completely confused and scared to the edge, and his thoughts wildly rush to understand why she is here. Edgar notices strange behavior, but Hirotaka frantically denies in panic that something is wrong with him. Gisela turns to him and calmly orders him to follow her. Now she has a serious expression. She wants to talk. Later they walk through the streets of the town. Gisela happily gnaws on street food, and her face shines with delight. The embarrassed hero followed someone, not understanding why he was feeding the Demon King, and his friend walked behind, keeping track. When she finishes her snack, Hirotaka finally stops her. He looks at her with a serious gaze and asks the question that had been bothering him. "You didn't die." She snorts disdainfully at this nonsense idea, insisting that an attack like his could never kill her, especially since she didn't even try at all. The whole party freezes in silent stupor. They are horrified by the real chasm between their powers. He began to tell how it really was, and every time he admitted he had a premonition that it would happen, a wave of fear washed over him. Gisela barely smiles, intrigued by his reaction. He instinctively places his hand on Asoro, and his body tenses as if another fight is about to break out when he asks if she came to take the sword back. The friendly atmosphere disappears, replaced by tense silence. They stare intently at each other without looking away. And Gisela suddenly turns sharply and dramatically, complains that people are so quick to provoke and fight. She tells him that it is not like that at all. In fact, she has already come up with something much better. With a joyful smile, she makes a stunning proposal. "Hirotaka, you will become the king of demons." He is so stunned that he can only fumble around, searching for something. Behind him, Rachel and Lissy are frozen in absolute horror. He demands to know what she is talking about, but she simply orders him to listen. Lazily hovering in the air, she grumbles that being the queen of demons is a constant hassle. People are always challenging her, and other demon kings get angry if she loses her sword. Her gaze sharpens and becomes focused as she looks at him. She pokes him in the chest with her finger and declares that he unexpectedly suits this job well. She asks if he has ever felt unusually strong and makes him recall all the instances when he demonstrated impressive power. Slightly smiling, she explains that Asoro has taken quite a liking to him and secretly strengthens his body. After all, she says, how else could an ordinary man survive her attack? He stands silently, digesting this stunning revelation. He stealthily glances down at the demonic sword on his thigh. He finally realizes Asoro has been supporting him all along. Gisela flies up close to him, again offering the same position, but he immediately shouts, "No." Lee wildly rejects the offer on his behalf, shouting, "No, absolutely no." She recalls the dark legends she studied, how a signed contract with a magical sword twists a person's character. She trembles with fear, afraid of what might happen to the kind Hirotaka she knows. Gisela waves off her worries and says it only makes you a little more honest with your own desires. She continues her sales pitch, promising colossal power and the freedom to live as he wishes. Words and the echo of amusements and lazy life strikes his memory. He mumbles the word freedom as if in a trance, but he suddenly comes to his senses, barely taps her on the head and reminds her that she just said, being a demon king is pure pain. He bursts into an irritated speech, declaring that he will continue traveling with Asoro but will never become a demon king. But Gisela stubbornly refuses to leave until he agrees, and this confuses his friends. Lisa just watches, and in her heart a quiet, anxious concern is concealed. And so the days begin to drag through a strange new dead end. One day Rona stands at the guild entrance, and from shock her jaw drops. Gisela stands in place, cheerfully waves her hand and announces her arrival, like a new employee. In a moment Hirotaka watches as she is immediately kicked out of the guild. This turns into their strange new routine. Hirotaka constantly finds Gisela causing trouble. He finds her she is bothering the frightened Rona. Once again he has to forcibly drag her away while she throws tantrums. Even Rachel gets involved, urging the lazy demon king with a baguette to finally move. Hirotaka looks at Asaro, his face is firm. He has made a decision. The days continue under this new crazy normal. After a few days he returns to the guild and lets out a tired but satisfied sigh. Lee and Rachel meet him at the door and warmly greet him when he returns. Lee asks if he has already gotten used to the new sword dojo training. He suddenly freezes in a dramatic pose and excitedly announces his new special move, until Rachel looks at him coldly without any admiration. She reminds him that he has already gained a lot of practical experience during their quests. His face became serious as he explained that he started training because he finally realized he is not as strong as he thought. He secretly glances down at the sword, admitting that he had no idea his partner Asaro was secretly supporting him. With newfound humility he admits, without that help he was just a weak person. He admits during the fight he was shaking with fear because his weakness endangered everyone. He clenches his fist, and a new fire flashes in his eyes as he declares that he needs to become stronger. Lee looks at him and her heart trembles from the sincere confession. Suddenly a familiar voice cuts in, hinting, the fastest way to become stronger is to become the Demon King. Hirotaka groans and orders Gisela, enough, drop it already. She appears in the doorway with a theatrical gesture, and now dressed in an unusually cute maid costume. The entire party crowd freezes, as if their brains are blown away by this new absurdity. He demands to know what she is wearing, and she proudly puffs out her chest. The trembling Rona peeks from behind the door and with this shows her plan. She hired Gisela as the Demon King's receptionist to cover the staff shortage and spin a grand promo buzz. He asks Gisela what she has planned there, but she is not in the mood. She is admiring how wonderful she looks. She says she can get motivated if it brings her a lazy future, and has already brought him the perfect task. With another joyful tada, she raises the official document, a joint request for subjugation. Taka looks at the paper, puzzled. A request for joint subjugation. Rona explains, this is a special request sent to several guilds at once when a monster appears that is too strong for one team. With a mischievous smile, Gisela leans toward Rona and announces the target. It is the legendary monster that chills the heart of everyone who hears its name, the dragon. The entire squad shouts together in one voice, D-Dragon. They are completely exhausted by the incredible news. They find out how rare this is. Lies talks about dragons or creatures from fairy tales, and Rachel confirms that she has never even heard of dragon hunting. Kazala only barely smiles, saying that strong dragons are perfect opponents for training. Rona adds that many experienced adventurers will participate, and the reward will be extremely generous. Taka runs her fingers over her chin, considering the offer, while Rachel wonders if dragon meat tastes good to Lies' horror. He aloud worries whether they will have to call the army for backup again. But Lies shakes her head and says that she does not think so. She says that moving the army without a direct order means igniting political quarrels among the lords. Moreover, she says that the army's duty is to protect its own city, so they cannot be sent away unless there is a direct threat. Hirotaka is impressed by her detailed knowledge of politics. Because of this, the embarrassed Lies lady waves it off. She insists that she just happened to hear it somewhere, but her nervous facial expression betrays her it's not that simple. A calm new voice cuts into the conversation and questions her excuse. The mysterious voice says, bullets, of course, she should know because it's about her own home. A slender, elegantly dressed man with strange marks on his cheek stands near the guild entrance. The team turns around surprised by the sudden intrusion and asks Hirotaka who he is. Lies looks intently at the man, her face pales from shock, and she quietly whispers one word, teacher. Hirotaka is completely lost. What? The man's gaze is fixed only on Lies, and he says that he has finally found her. The two of them stare intently at each other across the room. A slow, heavy silence falls between them. Hirotaka tries to connect the fragments, the teacher and his own home. The man calls her by her full name and reveals her identity to everyone around. He is Montagny. He explains she is the daughter of a noble family that rules this city, and is doomed to become the next court magician. Hear a speech that leaves everyone's jaws dropping. the daughter of a noble family. He shifts his gaze from the man to Liz and only now realizes the shy cleric in his squad is actually a noble lady. He asks why she never told them, but she looks down. The shame is so strong she cannot answer. The man, Ash, and Glow shrug at them with a look full of contempt and throw out. Can't believe she was among people who didn't even know this was Montagny territory. Rachel twitches her nose at his disdainful tone and tells Hirotaka that the man is mocking them. Hiding behind a pillar, Rona whispers that this is the legendary gray mage Ashen Glow, the court wizard of the Montagny family. Rona begins to panic, realizing the colossal political power now in the hands of her humble guild and fears that they could all be mercilessly crushed. Ashen Glow takes a decisive step forward. He glances at Lei, and his face fills with grim resolve. He orders her to return. He tells her that she is returning to Montagna State. He extends his gloved hand to take her. But before he can touch her, another hand appears, sharply thrusts out and grabs his wrist. Pressed or spoken, he steps between them and shields Lisa with his own body. He orders him to wait, his voice firm and protective, as if saying there is no need to take her by force. Ashen Glow looks at the boy who dared to intervene, eyes cold and dangerous, and he fumes. Who are you? He brushes him off like a stranger who has no place in family matters. But Hirotaki does not back down, insists they are not strangers. Hirotaka plants himself firmly, spreads his legs, and becomes a shield between Lei and the stern mage. He declares that these are Lei's companions, and they will not stay silent while someone tries to take her away. The tension dissipates as soon as Rachel speaks. She has something vital to announce. She points at Ashen Glow and, with anxiety in her voice, asks if he is eating properly. Ashen Glow looks completely exhausted. Her pointless question is the last thing he wants to hear. His visible eye flashes and the pure magic of the flash comes alive. Hirotaka's eyes widen sharply. He feels a sudden, gigantic power. Chains of light burst from the floor. In an instant they clamp Hirotaka, binding him in place. He gasps sharply, completely taken by surprise. He cannot move his hand. His entire body is completely paralyzed. Rachel struggles with her own shackles, and even her incredible strength is powerless here. Ashen Glow calmly warns them. He tells them not to fight magic, otherwise they will only harm themselves. Lizzie freezes in absolute horror. She desperately shouts to her friends that they have been captured, her voice breaking with fear. In a blur, he suddenly appears behind Lisa, and Hirotaka shouts in panic, "Wait." Ashen Glow takes her by the hand. His cold gaze fixes on her friends, as he questions whether they truly understand why a noble lady would be in such a place at all. Panic washes over Lisa's face like a wave. Her most hidden secret is about to surface. Her voice trembles as she begs the teacher to stop. He ignores her plea, revealing a simple truth: Liz ran away. He continues, his voice heavy with disappointment, as he explains that she abandoned the sacred duty for which she was born. A memory flashes in her mind. A little girl stands before the enormous gates of her family's estate, the burden of the mission to become the next court sorceress on her shoulders. She recalls a childhood filled with endless diligent study, where her serious character guaranteed steady progress until the day she turned 10. The memory darkens is filled with disembodied eyes and whispering voices of the nobility, all of them looking at her. Their expectations pressed down, suffocating with a heavy, stifling burden. At that moment, young Liz freezes, her face a mask of pure horror. The pressure became unbearable, and her immense magic broke free from control, turning the huge hall of her home into complete ruins. Returning to the present, Ashen Glow explains. After that day she developed a crippling stage fright, and because of it, she failed magic again and again. He looks down at her, his tone sharp, filled with pain. He asks if she has ever thought about the shame she brought upon him or her own father. Liz cannot meet his gaze. She whispers an apology, and he presses further, coldly asking if she needs to disappoint them even more to satisfy them. She turns to Hirotaka, shoulders slumped, defeat in her eyes, admitting she never tried to be useful, but was only a coward who fled from her duty. With tears in her eyes, she finally admits that all this time she deceived them. Hirotaka silently stands with his back to her, then lets out a long, quiet sigh. Liz's voice breaks as she admits how exhausting it is to be so weak. She tells him that since their meeting, she has finally had to experience the pain of struggle, but at the same time the joy of help from true comrades. Hirotaka finally returns, and to her surprise, there is a soft, penetrating smile on his face as he says that running away alone was probably incredibly painful. He tells her that she did well. These 3 words hit her right in the heart. A single tear bursts from her eye, and with it comes out all the shame she had held inside for so long. A gloomy glow watches this tender moment, his stern facial expression unreadable. His gaze flickers and the conversation is over. He takes one step and the air hums with power, as a teleportation spell begins to form. A bright magical circle flashes, illuminating the floor beneath him and Liza hinting at their inevitable departure. Rachel screams that he is using spatial transfer. Magic, he is taking Les. She fiercely struggles in the bonds, but the powerful magic holds her fast. The light of the teleportation circle flashes even stronger, and the magic seems strangely completely different from anything they have ever felt. Hirotaka pours all his strength into himself to break free. Ashen Glow glanced back, a contemptuous expression on his face. He tells them that their efforts are in vain. He laughs and adds that these chains cannot be broken, especially not by those miserable adventurers from such a worthless guild. The insult hits right on the nerve. Hirotaka's teeth clench and creak with anger. A strong wave of energy overwhelms him. He roars and directs all his power against the magical chains. A sharp crack cuts the silence in the room. A crack appears in the light magic. The ashen glow burns in his eyes. He suddenly opens them wide in disbelief. Impossible. Hirotaka speaks, his voice steady, and he confirms that he understands. Lee has a duty she must return to and fulfill. And just as his thoughts jump back to the lonely girl, who first asked to be his companion when he had nothing left, Lee looks at his back and her heart fills with hope. The magical chains continue to crack and crumble under the incredible pressure. He sharply turns around his face like a mask of uncovered feelings and roars that being with them is her duty too. Magical chains crumble, they explode into shards of light. Just as the light had not yet faded, Hirotaka abruptly jumped across the room and pressed Lisa to himself in protective embrace, tearing her from her teacher's hands. The darkened glow whispers from pure shock, his perfectly assembled guiding spells have broken. He cannot comprehend how someone managed to break the spell with brute force, and yet not sustain serious injuries in the process. Hirotaka gives Lysia a calming, though slightly sweaty smile, explaining that his body is just a little special. At his belt, the demonic sword Asaro flickers, revealing the secret source of his mysterious and growing power. He carefully lets go of Lee, asks if she is okay, and apologizes for taking everything into his own hands. He looks into her eyes and realizes, through all this, no one has actually asked what she truly wants. Lysia from this place looks at her teacher in attack. No, a new strength hardens her gaze. She takes a deep breath, steps forward, and stands between the two of them. She looks at her teacher not like a frightened child, but like a young woman ready to stand up for herself and speak to the point. She begins by respectfully saying, sincerely grateful for everything he has taught her. She promises that she will return home someday, because she has not abandoned the dream of becoming a court magician. She freezes, gathers courage within herself, but not now. Right now, I want to stay with the Junketers. She declares that tears of determination flow down her cheek, and explaining this, she says, here she can do everything as best as possible together with them. Ashen Light looks at her, in his gaze a strange, unreadable emotion is frozen. He speaks quietly, almost to himself, and thinks about how much time has passed since she last so clearly declared her own will. Lisa's confidence wavers as she asks if she even has the right to say such things after she lied to all of them. Rachel smiles slyly now that her own chains have been removed. She reminds Lee, once she herself betrayed the party's trust but still remains here. Hirotaka puts his hands on his hips and with an incredible smile shouts that, of course, everything is fine. His smile shines and breathes acceptance. Rachel responds with a warm, supportive smile. Stunned by their kindness, Lisa shifts her gaze to her friends. Fresh tears of pure happiness flare up in her eyes. Rachel turns to the court mage and calmly defends the opinion that everything is going well for Lee here, and then casually asks how long he will keep her in chains. Hirotaka and Rachel comically praise Lisa's abilities, and Hirotaka enthusiastically adds that her healing magic even improves the condition of your skin. Rachel sharply strikes a dramatic pose, easily breaking the bonds, and declares that as a magical genius her verdict is absolute. Lisa is a wonderful magician. Ashen Glow listens to their passionate defense without uttering a single word. He slightly looks away, quietly admitting that he knows Lisa's potential better than anyone. And then he reveals a stunning secret. Lisa, as the bearer of the legendary blessing of chakra, could not possibly be without talent. Rachel's jaw drops in shock. The blessing of chakra is a divine gift drawn from the world of myths. Here Hirotaka looks confused, admitting that this is something else he does not understand. But now it is clear why Lisa's sacred magic is so powerful. Ashen Glow explains that his true mission is to nurture this divine gift and guide her until she becomes a full-fledged court magician. The depth of his conviction is read in his eyes. This was his plan. Yet still, he says, turning to them and changing his tone. He issues a challenge. If they are so sure this is the right place for Lisa, let them prove it. Hirotaka and Lisa exchange confused glances. The mage reminds them of the conversation he overheard just upon arrival. He looks them straight in the eyes and orders them to take on the dragon's subjugation quest and bring him the dragon's head. He sets the conditions. If they fail or if the other party claims the prize first, Lee will immediately return home with him. He says this should not be an insurmountable task for her, and that he cannot leave his apprentice at a party that cannot handle such a challenge. Before anyone can object, Hirotaka leans forward, his eyes burning like flames, and roars that they accept the challenge. The three adventurers stand as one formation, their faces a mix of shock, nervousness, and complete determination. The ashen glow studies their gathered, resolute expressions for a long time. He nods and briefly says he has an answer. He turns away, and his body begins to blur as he activates another teleportation spell. Disappearing, he tells them he will handle the Montagny family himself, and will return when their business is done. As his shadow, already fading, calls him. In tears of gratitude, she thanks him for giving her this chance, and apologizes for being such a selfish student. For a moment before he disappears, a soft, proud smile flashes on his lips. He gave his apprentice the chance she needed. In the reflection of the light, he disappears. The challenge has already been issued. Hirotaka smiles and breaks the silence, stating that they have no choice but to succeed. Rachel smiles indulgently, puffs out her chest, and says that her hands itch for action. However, a loud stomach hints that she might just be hungry. Lee clenches her fists, realizing this is a trial for her to finally master the incredible power she was born with. Her eyes sharply widen with a thrilling revelation. This is her chance to become strong. With renewed determination, the three shout together. Their goal is clear. They will take the dragon's head. From a dark corner of the guild hall comes a quiet, sleepy sound. Gisela, the lazy demon lord, rises from drowsiness and thinks to herself that everything that started as a boring human drama. Suddenly, everything becomes incredibly exciting. A predatory, tusked grin spreads across her face. She peers out the window, carefully watching the game that has just reignited with motivation. The adventurers prepare for the hardest trial in history. Somewhere far away in the land of steep, gigantic mountains, another story unfolds. A giant reptilian eye snaps open. A giant dark figure moves against the sky. With incredible speed, the creature swiftly flies through the air. It is a majestic dragon, entirely covered with shimmering scales and like a mane sharp feather-like fur. The beast flies with power and grace, a true king of the skies. Meanwhile, in the luxuriously decorated guild hall, another group of travelers receives their task. Kanishi, the hero, taps on the wanted poster and announces to his team that they will go hunt the dragon. His companions are stunned. Hunting a dragon is much more dangerous than the easy tasks they are used to. They immediately begin to complain about the difficult road and the terrifying beast. Inikai's face darkens, and he coldly asks if they have a problem, threatening to kick them out of the party. One of the comrades sharply replies, but Kanishi just snorts, implying that he cannot be compared to those who just play around. He declares that he will never live a life unknown to anyone, and will make everyone recognize his superiority. His thoughts turn bitter. The glory of victory over the Demon King was stolen from him, but who had the heart to do it? His face contorts in a mask of rage. Whoever it was, he cannot forgive anything. In contrast, Hirotaki smiles brightly, ready to face the future together with his true friends. The day of the hunt arrives. In a vast snowy valley, travelers from all corners have gathered for the great dragon elimination. Hirotaki and his friends see a huge crowd of mighty warriors around them, and the whole moment feels exciting and new. Suddenly, a small figure in a cloak hovers next to Hirotaki. Gisela. He nervously asks why she followed them, and she looks irritated. She smiles lazily and explains, "Dragons are rarely seen, she just wanted to watch the show." He stares at her motionlessly, squinting suspiciously. He knows for sure she is up to something. Not far away, a group of burly adventurers laugh and point fingers at someone. They mockingly brand him, decorative hero, only for show and without any substance. Those hosting the banquet watch the commotion, and Rachel wisely advises them to stay away. The target of their insults becomes Kanishi. One of the men disdainfully snorts at him and calls the hero a dead weight. The conversation continues here, and the eyes widen slightly. Recognition hits immediately. The leader of the rough adventurers approaches Kanishi and angrily asks whom he calls dead weight, until he recognizes him. Kanishi looks at him contemptuously, nullifying the dignity of his mind and humiliating his intellect. The traveler's gaze twitches with pure fierce anger. He roars, draws his sword, and enraged rushes forward blindly. With lightning speed, Kanishi draws his own blade and effortlessly parries the attack. The attacker gasps in shock. He cannot believe how easily his strike was stopped. Kanishi coolly declares that he has no time to waste on incompetent fools. His eyes flash with cold, deadly light as he warns the man. If he stands in his way again, he will make him disappear. The intimidated travelers retreat, muttering that the so-called hero was nowhere to be found when the real Demon King attacked the city. Kanishi simply turns his back to them and tells them to go home and stick to the easy jobs they prefer. He and his squad withdraw, and Kanishi states that this whole encounter was a complete waste of time. Hidotaka looks at his old party and sees. They have not changed a bit, but their reputation has clearly fallen. While they are walking, one of Kanishi's comrades grabs his head and grumbles about this exhausting situation. The others pick up on it. They agree, complain that they shouldn't have come here, and that no one here seems to be waiting for them. Kanishi twitched sharply and, grimacing angrily with words, told them that it is precisely their weak position that makes other adventurers mock and look down on them. Here, one of the party members grabs Kanishi by the collar and shouts that he doesn't care what others think of him. He complains that he is dragged into this dangerous mission only because Kanishi believes their skills are wasted. Kanishi looks at him intently with a cold, unwavering gaze. He pushes the hand away and calmly explains, "This is the one and only quest, but what a great reward, the most effective way to maintain their lifestyle." From afar, Hirotaka does not look away. He watches how tensely this scene unfolds. Rachel approaches him closer, asks if he knows them, and immediately notices the obvious tension. He explains that these are his former comrades, the ones who kicked him out, but tries to brush it off with words that he was simply weak back then. Lycia is impressed. She knows that Kanish's skill of zeroing attack ability is incredible, famous worldwide. Hirotake clenches his fist in excitement and declares that his old party has now become a powerful rival in this quest. Unaware of this, the other travelers whisper among themselves. They say Hirotaka, the one who was kicked out of the heroic party, is now called an incredible adventurer by everyone. Eventually, the rumor reaches the ears of Kanishi, the very one who truly defeated the Demon King. And it was none other than Hirotake. Kanishi freezes, his thoughts whirl, and he cannot believe that this could really be true. In his memory, Hirotake is just a worthless kid with junk skills, someone who can be discarded. Choking with rage, Kanishi shouts to the sky, summoning the dragon to appear so that he can prove his superiority. While he shouts, he suddenly raises his gaze. Something is happening. A giant shadow suddenly looms over the valley, and the entire area is plunged into eerie darkness. The other travelers look around in confusion. One of them points tremblingly at the sky. The frightened adventurer gasps for air. It has appeared. Descending as a shadow over everyone, the legendary beast arrives. The dragon descends. Its colossal figure eclipses the sun, even more terrifying and majestic than in the legends. While other travelers freeze in fear, Hirotaka acts. Rachel shouts. Without hesitation, she releases magic, raising a swirling vortex of wind and throwing it directly at the beast. Her spell hits the dragon, and a strong upward current lifts it, softening the landing. Kanishi is pinned to the ground by his gaze, stunned by the incredible display of magical power. He has no idea who could have cast such a powerful spell. His eyes widen in shock as soon as he sees the figure using the upward current to jump high into the air and fly toward the dragon. It's Hirotaka. "I'll take this head," Ataka shouts. His voice sounds with full determination as he flies straight at the beast. The dragon reacts instantly. Its head jerks sharply forward, and a blinding stream of energy bursts from its jaws. Frozen in flight, Hirotaka desperately raises his sword and calls on its power to cut through the mana. He is completely engulfed by a mighty explosion. The force of the blow throws him back to the ground, and Lee and Rachel shout his name in horror. He quickly gets up covered in soot but miraculously unharmed, groaning that it really hurts. He lowers his gaze to his demonic sword and cannot understand why his special skill Mana Break did not work at all. "Because those flames are not from magic," a confidently mocking voice of an acquaintance explains while Gisela floats down and sits next to him. Hidotaka looks at her, completely confused by her words. As if to prove his point, the dragon releases another huge ball of pure raw energy. The group flinches back as the explosion flies forward right at them, and Hidotaka roars for everyone to be careful. He lands on his feet, battered but ready, his gaze fixed on the new threat. The fiery energy fades, but the dragon is gone. In his place stands a tall, burly man with wild red hair and horns. The strange man smiles crookedly, and his gaze sticks to their little companion, saying he has finally found her. He utters one name, Kaisela. Hidotaka freezes in complete shock. The dragon simply turned into a human. The dragon human stomps his foot and yells at the little demon king, grumbling that she was incredibly hard to find because she is so tiny. Gisela covers her ears and retorts that he is the one who is too huge, and he shouts back that men should be as big as possible. Hirotaka was completely stunned, caught between a lazy demon king and a loud, hot-headed dragon man. He turns to Gisela, the only one who might have answers, and asks if this newcomer is familiar to her. She gives him a sly, all-knowing smile as if to say, enough pretending to be dumb, and you probably already understand everything. When the dust settles, Gisela reveals his identity. It is Tristan, the Demon King of Wrath. The surviving traveler whispers in fear. A second much more dangerous demon lord has appeared. Hierotica can hardly believe it, muttering that this must be a cruel trick. From beyond the battlefield, Kanishi watches intently upwards at the mighty new enemy. A predatory lucky smile spreads across his face. A dragon demon lord, and this is the perfect moment to reclaim his glory. His thoughts race through possibilities. If he defeats this creature, he will become a true hero. Tristan turns, and his eyes flare with terrible power, and his gaze fixes on Kanishi. Kanishi shudders, a drop of sweat rolls down his face, as he feels the oppressive pressure of the Demon King Zor. Tristan ignores the hero and aims his gaze at Gisela's group, demanding, has she found the magic sword or not? Gisela casually points her thumb at Hierotica and says to Tristan, just kill him and take it back. She hangs from his shoulders onto herself, declaring that she is leaving, and hands him her title while Hierotica angrily objects. Tristan's face is like a mask of complete shock. His voice is dangerously muffled. A dark, oppressive aura begins to seep from him, so strong that even Gisela looks at it with concern. Tristan's voice is soaked with disappointment. He tells her that he respected her laziness, a trait worthy of a demon lord. He clenches his fist, and his voice drops to a deadly growl as he tells her that there is no retreat for them. Feeling the devastating power about to burst out, Hierotica, in a frantic scream, begged everyone to take cover. Tristan raises one hand and the very sky twists, turning into a swirling vortex filled with pure despair. His reptilian eye flashes with malicious light as he issues a single command word, perish. A seismic-scale burst of energy erupts. The explosion engulfs the entire valley. The world is swallowed by a blinding white light. Everything blurs into a solid fog as the shockwave tears the landscape apart in an instant. And a terrifying silence falls. After everything, Hierotica struggles to rise from the scorched earth, battered and bewildered. In horror, he looks around at the wasteland smoking, with the bodies of adventurers scattered across the crater. He sees one of those fallen travelers and, opening his mouth in relief that they are still alive, shudders with amazement. Then he notices a soft glow enveloping each of the unconscious warriors. This soft, holy light is a protective spell. He instantly understands who cast it. In panic, he frantically searches for Leza and calls her name. His heart stops, nothing remains of relief, only icy cold. He sees Leaves, her face pale with shock, and she presses the unconscious and severely wounded figure of Rachel to her chest. Lisa's voice trembles as she whispers that Rachel protected her. A flash of memory shows the moment of the explosion. Rachel knew they would not survive. She prepared herself, scolding their helplessness. Then a barrier wall of light appeared around her among the leaves. Rachel made a decision in a split second, and shouted that she would spend all her own mana to cover Lee in response. She urged Lee to master her blessing, saying that only she could protect everyone. She gave Lee one last confident smile and said that she would definitely manage. Returning to the present, Lee holds her fallen friend, recalling Rachel's last request to save Hierotica. Tears run down her face and she whispers, full of guilt, that she lacked the strength to protect them. Hierotica suddenly throws himself to her side, his voice hums with support. He insists that everyone is still alive thanks to her. He takes command, orders Lisa to focus on healing, and searches for a way to deal with the Demon King himself. Wiping her tears, Lisa nods and determination hardens in her gaze. Kaizella floats beside Hierotica, mockingly asks if any ordinary person can really stop the mad Demon King. She shows him a predatory, sinister smile with fangs, and says that it is impossible until he himself becomes the Demon King. Hierotica looks at her intently, his voice trembling with anger. A threatening shadow looms over him. Tristan stands directly behind. Hierotaca's eyes widen sharply with absolute horror. The King of Devils of Wrath utters a single word disdainfully, muffled, weak. He unleashes a furious strike, and Hierotica flies through the air. He moves like a blurred stain, hitting Hierotica again and again, until it thunders with each brutal blow. His roar grows weaker. Hierotica screams in pain, completely powerless to defend himself. He is completely smashed against the ground, broken and finally defeated. Tristan howls, is furious, raging that such pathetic weaklings make him lose his composure. Gisela hovered nearby and looked exhaustedly bored by this one-sided slaughter. Hyro coughed weakly, lying in a crater of broken stones. A terrible reality hits him. This is the power of a true Demon King. His bones are pierced by utter despair. He knows for sure he cannot win. Tristan looms over the battlefield, mockingly looking at the survivors and calls them trash, even those who dare to think they matter to anyone. He opens his mouth ready to launch another attack and put an end to everything. The Lee stands firm, her figure small, but it flashes with holy light. Tristan looked at her irritated because she does not retreat. Hidetaka shouts, trying to warn her. A desperate voice rings in the head. Asoro, the demonic sword, begs him to make a contract. A vision of Gazelle appears, her eyes wide open, in a crazy yet poignant hope-joy. And another voice, gentle and firm, cuts into this whirl you can. Hirotaka is stunned, the voice barely fades. She stands alone against the Demon King with her back to her friends. She slightly turns her head and her gaze does not tremble. Tristan roars that the riffraff must die just the same like riffraff. He unleashes a deadly barrage of pure dark destruction right at her. The world seems to slow down as the attack flies over obstacles straight at Lisa. Hidetaka can only watch, trembling with horror. Lisa's voice fills his head. She asks if he remembers their first meeting. He remembered telling her, her kindness is a stronger medicine than any magic. A vision of Lee appears before him, battered, but with a beautiful, genuine smile that says she truly loves his kindness. She says if he becomes the Demon King, he may no longer be himself, and she cannot accept that. Gisela clearly looks irritated at Lisa's interference, which was completely unnecessary. When the last touching farewell remains, he makes a strong emotional promise. If he becomes the Demon King, she will hate him. Hirotaku shakes to the very core. Her words stop him from making a choice he will regret. Tristan watches the exchange with contempt, muttering how all this is pointless. He raises his hand. He orders them to regret their helplessness and die, snapping his fingers to release the last wave of power. At this very moment, dozens of glowing circles of holy magic flare up across the entire battlefield, covering every fallen adventurer. Lisa screams, pouring all her will into the protective spell. Her chants echoes through the wasteland, a desperate symphony of protection and healing. The holy light flares even stronger, growing into a massive barrier against Tristan's power. The memory of Rachel's confident smile flashes in her thoughts. The memory of her teacher's firm belief in her talent gives her strength. Lisa's eyes flare with a new fierce light. She is no longer afraid. In her mind, she stands in the ruined hall of her childhood and finally admits to her younger self. She always knew within her is absolute power. She always knew where to find it. She looks at her past with compassion, not fear. She whispers what she was so long afraid of, and regrets that she kept looking away. She embraces her younger self, finally accepting the power she rejected for 10 years, and implores her, "Lend me your might." From her bursts an explosion of pure divine light so dazzling that even demon kings shield their eyes. Both Tristan and Gisela freeze in shock, watching the incredible spectacle. The light merges in an instant, and from it emerges a majestic ephemeral figure of the goddess. "Ah, goddess," Hirotake whispers from beneath the earth, his eyes wide open with delight. This is the sacred mother chakra, embodied in the physical world, and lies calmly hovers at its center. She exalted the merciful god who answered her call. Her eyes open a radiance like a sacred pattern in the shape of the sun, and her voice echoes with a single sincere plea to protect everyone. The divine being, the chakra, extends a soft palm over the devastated battlefield. From the ashes of the scorching earth, dark energy tentacles disperse as unconscious adventurers are tossed into the air. A soft protective light envelops them completely, healing wounds and soothing pain. The goddess gathers all fallen warriors into a huge sphere of pure healing light, keeping them safe. Tristan stirs, his rage momentarily shifts to disbelief before the impossible sight of the divine manifestation. He growls, unable to comprehend how some miserable person could summon such a creature. Sitting on the ground, Hirotaka lifts his head and freezes. He is captivated by the holy radiance. He whispers how incredible it is. Lissy, in the heart of the goddess, clasps her hands in prayer and begs, the Holy Mother Chakra give her just a little more strength. On her face is a mask of boundless concentration, as she pleads for the power to stop the furious rampage of the Demon King. Tristan shudders in shock. Hidetaki's jaw drops in shock. It is unbelievable. Even Gisela looks ahead with wide eyes and complete shocked surprise at what will happen next. The goddess's eyes suddenly open wide, flashing with a light alien to this world. With unexpected force, the divine being delivers a mighty blow directly to the Demon King's face. Lissy's voice, imbued with the goddess's power, echoes with new feelings. She proclaims that she is wildly enraged. Her divine power has fully awakened. She closes her eyes with focus and suddenly opens them again sharply. The goddess's eyes flare brightly, reflecting Lissy's determination. Tristan roars from the shocking pain. The towering goddess begins again and again, in a clear rhythm, beating Tristan all over his body as if a father mother scolds a disobedient child. The mighty demon Prince of Wrath is relentlessly subdued, bent into submission. He cannot comprehend the humiliating blow. Hidetake can only remain frozen, staring completely stunned. He falters and incessantly babbles the name Lisa. Tristan finally manages to grab the goddess's hand. He sows, confused by her strange power. He roars, not understanding how she dares to speak so arrogantly. The goddess's expression remains calm, not moving at all. He finishes his roar and, releasing his own power, unleashes it upon her. A dark energy bursts from him like a whirlwind, but safely dissipates, striking the sacred aura of the goddess. Tristan surrounds himself with dark, destructive flames, wildly roaring that she cannot kill him. The flame cuts back, but the divine manifestation of the chakra remains untouched, a calm beacon amid the sea of darkness. Lise strains colossal efforts to maintain the divine presence, exhaust her to the edge. Liza's heavy breathing tells him, as the god of protection, chakra will make his attacks futile. She is confused. He seems not angry that his attacks fail. Tristan explains that he is not angry because she blocked him. He is angry because of her superficiality. He exposes a terrible truth and calls upon a divine being like a forbidden technique that has a terrible price. He asks if she is trying to die, knowing that this act drains her life force like a battery. Hirotaka freezes in horror at the revelation. Lise lowers her head. She already knows what it will cost. Her time is running out by seconds. But she is determined. She simply must endure until Hirotaka finds a breach. Tristan's silhouette appears, a sly smile on his face. He asks the one who said his flame is made only of magic. He reveals another terrible secret. He can create hellfire both from mana and from his own body, and therefore can burn forever. He begins a new chant, calling upon the fiery god to grant him the power of divine judgment. Above him flares a huge swirling sphere of black and white energy, a cosmic meteor. He boasts that this spell has the power to destroy a mountain and challenges the guardian god let him endure. The giant meteor falls down, and Lise groans hoarsely. She realizes that her power is insufficient to stop it. At that very moment, Hirotaka appears beside her, fully restored. He throws the goddess a quick, apologetic glance. He shouts an apology to the deity as he uses her divine image as a springboard. He flies to the media, or declares that if the attack is magic, then God is not needed to stop it. He shouts the name of his technique, Mana Break. He swings his sword and in a dazzling flash, cuts the catastrophic spell in half, forcing it to dissipate into nothingness. His eyes are filled with fierce determination. Tristan watches, completely stunned by this turn of events. He cannot believe it. This person, a small fry, has mastered the magical sword so perfectly. Hirotaka stands next to Lysia and gently reproaches her for such reckless actions alone. Tristan's eyes narrow. He repeats the name he just heard. He recognizes the name Japanese, and this completely throws Hirotaka off balance. Hirotaka asks how he could possibly know about Japan at all. Tristan breaks into a broad, unexpected smile and exclaims how strange it is to meet a compatriot here. He spreads his arms wide and announces something stunning. Moreover, he is a former Japanese summoned here over 100 years ago. Hirotaka exclaims in disbelief, 100 years. Tristan's smile becomes sly and dangerous, as if hinting that since Hirotaka is also Chinese, he should understand the irresistible charm of power. After that, he does something truly crazy, opens his mouth as wide as physically possible. He begins to pull the sword's hilt out of his own throat. With a theatrical flourish, he draws a long Japanese katana, boasting that it is his magical sword legion. Hirotaka stares. He is in complete stupor. He has never seen a katana, not even a magical one. Tristan explains confusedly. He is from a much more modern Japan than Hirotaka's, a time when such weapons did not exist. He dismisses the confusing details, and his attention is drawn back to the battle. He tries to move forward, excited for some time now. Curiosity has been gnawing at him. Which magical saber is the strongest? One Japanese man to another, he grins, sharp teeth fully exposed. Let's have a serious duel. He challenges Hirotaka to a duel. His magical legion swords against Asoro's magical sword. Two fencers take their stance, looking each other in the eyes across the deserted battlefield. From afar, Kanishi observes an impossible scene. Hirotaka stands on equal footing with the Demon King, and behind them hovers a goddess. He and his one and only ally are the only others left alive. The rest were saved by Lisa's magic. Kanishi shudders, sweat pouring down his face. He cannot comprehend what he is seeing. His companion, scared to death, shouts, "Run, there's nothing more to be done here." Kanishi repeats the word run again and again, his eyes empty. He cannot run until he proves that his existence is truly real. His companion looks at him, mixing pity and irritation in his gaze. He finally gives up and orders Kanishi to do whatever he wants, then leaves alone. Kanishi remembers the drive he felt when this world chose him. He was chosen and this was supposed to prove. He has higher value, like a perfect diamond outweighing a worthless stone. So why does he wander in the clothes of terror, and no one looks at him anymore? The duel rages, Hirotaka clashes with Tristan, and the force of their blows shakes the earth. Hirotaka cannot hold his ground against the overpowering strength of the Demon King. Tristan roars that there is no time to rest, and his attacks become faster and more ruthless. Suddenly a third blade crashes into the fight. It intercepts Tristan's katana. It is Kanishi. Both Hirotaka and Tristan shuddered in surprise at his sudden intervention. Kanishi's eyes are wild and desperate as he begs the Demon King, "Look at him." Hirotaka breaks out in a scream full of relief. Kanishi is safe. He is struck by the power of Kanishi's skill in nullifying attacks, and he suggests fighting together. But instead of attacking Tristan, Kanishi spins and immediately swings his sword straight at Hirotaka. Hirotaka cries out in shock, barely managing to dodge the unexpected betrayal. Kanishi's voice is cold when he says that Hirotaka himself must be interrogated. He glares fiercely, his face twisted with rage, and demands to know why this worthless incompetent dared to fight the Demon King. Then he points his sword at Hirotaka. His eyes blaze with a mad desire. He demands the magical sword. Hirotaka is completely stunned. Isekai continues, his voice filled with bitter anger. He insists that he knew Hirotaka's success was strange. He snorts and claims that it was because of the sword, and someone as outstanding as himself could use it better. The echo of Ikei's twisted logic rang in his head. He was chosen, so what right does a worthless person have to salvation? He is transported back to the moment when he realized, in this new world he has power. He remembers seeing Hirotaka next to him, an ordinary, confused person. For Kanishi, this power meant only one thing. It meant that he has value. He growls at Hirotaka, accusing him of arrogance, a power that does not belong to him at all. He shouts. His envy consumes him completely as he tells Hirotaka not to be arrogant. Hirotaka shouts back, trying to convince him that now is not the time for mutual quarrels. But Kanishi insists that this is already beyond reason and whines. Hirotaka's calm behavior irritates him. Tristan watches, his face a mask of pure anger. He growls that this idiot interfered in a serious duel between men. The fury of the Demon King, which was previously directed at only one, now turns against both. Hirotaka understands, the situation is critical, this is bad. Kanishi just snorts mockingly, too blinded by pride to see the danger. Tristan raises the magical katana and walks away, and the clock remains. As if in trembling fear, the divine presence around it fades. With one devastating strike, Tristan's blade cuts through the divine manifestation of the earth. Chakra lies gasps for air in Shakaza, her final defense shattered. The world is once again covered by Tristan's destructive power. A powerful attack carves a giant crack in the distant mountain. Tristan lands his one and only strike, which managed to deal with both god and hero. The divine light fades and the servant of divinity falls exhausted. She whispers that this cannot be, but her body is already giving out. She collapses to the ground, and Hirotaka screams her name in panic. He rushes to her abruptly, fearing the worst. He exhales with relief. She is simply unconscious. Tristan stands over them with a bloody smile on his face, boasting, as if when he is enraged, his magical sword can cut through anything. Even the protective magic of the god cannot stop this. And likewise, no skill of attack neutralization can cancel it. The whirlpool of dark energy spun into a tornado and tore through the middle of Kanishi's body, a wound no mortal would survive. He chokes on blood, eyes wide open in disbelief, and life rapidly escapes him. Hirotaka looked at his fallen former leader and began calling him to get up, as if the fight was not over yet. Tristan ignores the dying hero, his gaze fixed on Hirotaka, and he wants to continue their duel. Hirotaka does not take his eyes off Kanishi. His face shows a painful expression. As Kanishi fades, he raises his gaze to Hirotaka once more. He raps and asks if Hirotaka will finish him off. He snorts disdainfully every week, convinced Hirotaka secretly hated him all this time. A memory surfaces in his mind, a vision symbolizing his own worldview. The strong suppress the weak. His entire life was governed by a simple and cruel belief. He hates incompetent people. He lies on the ground, tangled, and Hirotaka does not move. He waits for the final blow, but it never comes. His eyes tear downward and suddenly open in shock. The unbearable wound in his abdomen disappeared. He stammering insists that the body has already healed. Hirotaka stands before him and admits, this was his first attempt to use this technique, but he is glad it worked. He calls his own secret skill immortality, granting attributes, and says that it was the only thing that came to mind to save him. Kanishi froze and asked why Hirotaka saved him after everything that happened. When Kanishi asks why he attacks immediately, the answer is simple: because he does not want him to die. Kanishi stares, completely broken by this act of pure, unconditional kindness. His holistic worldview shatters in that one moment. Tristan loses patience and releases another burst of energy. Hirotaka shouts the name Kanishi, and the explosion blows his former leader into the air. Tristan roars with rage due to the endless interruptions of their match. He snaps his gaze to the unconscious bodies of Kanekian. And Lysai calls them all garbage. Everything they exist by was already a mistake. He lowers his gaze to the wounded Rachel. Hirotaka's kindness finally reaches its limit. He tightly grips Asaro and orders him to be silent. He bursts out in a flash of righteous anger, roaring that self-absorbed people like Tristan have no right to call anyone garbage. When he shouts, his left hand disintegrates into black particles, and his ultimate skill comes at too high a cost. He stares at his hand, crumbling right before his eyes in shock and pain. Tristan grabs Hirotaka by the head, presses him into his knees, and sneers that living for others is an excuse for losers. He calls Hirotaka's life worthless, a pathetic circle of weaklings who use each other under the deceptive name comrades. But when he falls to his knees in the dirt, broken and bleeding, Hirotaka suddenly realizes something profound. They saved him. Tristan is confused. Hirotaka explained, when he came to this world he lost everything, but thanks to finding friends he was never truly alone. He raises his gaze clear and firm and declares, since he is not alone, whatever happens he will be fine. Tristan is noticeably trembling. Hirotaka's words struck a deep, forgotten chord that awakened in the centuries-old Demon King. His gaze ignites with a dark, otherworldly power. The time has come. Memories surface a quiet moment when he asked Gisela how to make a contract with a magical sword. He recalls her simple answer, offer her your blood. She explained the ritual. You must let your blood fall over the entire blade and then with all your heart desire power. Gisela was delighted. She thought he was finally ready to accept his fate. He remembers holding the knife at the ready, prepared to make a choice. In that memory, he decided not to become the Demon King, but made a new promise to his sword. He apologized to his friends, the very ones he would betray with this act. He cut his hand, allowing the blood to flow onto Asaro, acknowledging, kindness alone is not enough to protect those he loves. He made a pact with the demonic sword, setting a condition. When the time comes to abandon his kindness, he wants it to make him the king of demons. A huge vortex of dark energy bursts out of Hirotaki, and it explodes. Gisela swims nearby, laughing triumphantly. The contract is fulfilled, she announces it with an eerily joyful smile. Dark tentacles of pure demonic energy tear out from his body. He is completely engulfed by the swirling darkness. The darkness digs and moves into a new form. As the energy recedes, Hirotaki changes. His hair becomes ice white, and demonic horns curve from his head while he holds the newly transformed Asaro. In an instant, he stands before Tristan. Their swords clash with such force that the air around cracks. Tristan's eyes flare with mad delight. This is the fight he longed for. The new Hirotaki looks at him with cold, piercing eyes. His voice is even, without any emotion, as he utters a chilling promise he will be returned to oblivion.